Chapter 1800. The uneasiness in his heart had dissipated, but Qin Yu did not relax. His intuition told him that something must have happened just now. Taking a deep breath, Qin Yu said, "We must hurry up. After breaking through to the true Emperor realm, we must leave the Void realm." Bai Feifei nodded, all right. She was also extremely anxious. Bai Feifei and Qin Yu had long been linked together. If something happened to Qin Yu, she would be in trouble as well. Swish Qin Yu continued deeper into the Void realm. As he had said before, the further he went from the Middle Desolate, the less pressure he would feel from Great Qin. His identity as the Desolate Domain's Spirit of Destiny would be activated once more. Suddenly, Bai Feifei looked up into the endless darkness, a look of joy on her face. "My lord, your luck has finally recovered." She pointed. "There are people fighting in that direction. 2 true emperors." Qin Yu smiled. "Good." In the vast void realm and the endless sea of chaos, it was difficult to meet even one, let alone 2 true emperors. Killing 3 true emperors and stealing their great Tao energy would allow him to break through. Luo Guan was the first. Killing the 2 in front of him would allow him to achieve his goal. "Go!" Qin Yu shouted, rushing in the direction Bai Feifei pointed. Boom! A heaven-shaking explosion erupted in the darkness. Wild power swept out, shaking the surroundings. 2 lightning-fast figures were entangled in a frenzy. They did not say a word. Throughout the entire process, they did not make a single sound. There was only a cold glint in their gloomy and oppressive eyes. Their attacks were extremely brutal. They did not care about their own injuries, only wanting to cause more damage to their enemies. This was a battle of life and death. Suddenly, one of the true emperors roared. This was the first time he had spoken, and his aura surged. His skinny body instantly became plump again, turning into a handsome middle-aged man. He lifted a finger. As the finger descended, it pierced through the darkness and slammed into the chest of the true sovereign. A muffled sound rang out as his flesh and bone were shattered. Shockingly, a massive hole appeared in his chest. The heavily injured true emperor's eyes widened, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Puff! The black crow blood sword howled, heading straight for the other true emperor's face, sending him flying. Blood landed on his body like strong acid, instantly rotting his flesh and revealing his bones. In the blink of an eye, one was dead and one was injured. The surviving true sovereign's 2 palms were only left with white bones, and the flesh on his face had been corroded. Terrifying holes could be seen on his face, making him look extremely sinister and miserable. However, there wasn't the slightest bit of pain in his eyes. Only a trace of excitement surged out from the depths of his eyes. Swish the surviving true sovereign turned around to leave. Boom! A terrifying sword aura erupted, condensing into a giant sword shadow that slashed down. The man's expression changed dramatically. He stomped his foot heavily and retreated. Bam! With a loud bang, he was sent flying. Bai Feifei appeared, her face expressionless. In the next moment, the sword pierced through his head, killing him on the spot. Qin Yu put away his sword and sat down cross-legged. The sun and moon vortexes appeared once more, rumbling as they sucked in the 2 true sovereign corpses. Seize the great Tao and become a true emperor. Bai Feifei's face lit up with joy, but it quickly turned solemn as she looked around. Breaking through to the true emperor realm meant that the great Tao had completely condensed, and from then on, it would exist in the world. However, breaking through to the next realm was not an easy task. Not to mention the difficulty of breaking through. One had to go through trials and tribulations when breaking through to the next realm. Moreover, Qin Yu's method of breaking through could be considered ruthless and cruel. He killed other true sovereigns and stole their great Taos to increase his own realm. Such behavior was no different from that of a demon. Under normal circumstances, if heaven and earth sensed this, heavenly retribution would descend. The good news was that Qin Yu was in the Void realm, not in any realm. The chances of heavenly retribution descending were very small. However, the problem was that Bai Feifei didn't know if Qin Yu's breakthrough in the Void Realm would cause other problems, and sometimes the unknown was even more terrifying. Rumble. A low rumble erupted in the Void Realm. Bai Fei looked at Qin Yu, her expression becoming increasingly solemn. Breaking through to the true, sovereign realm had begun. The roaring darkness surged violently, as if there were terrifying eyes peeking out from within. They stared at Qin Yu, and they also stared at Bai Fei. This caused her body to stiffen, her face filled with shock and anger. Before this, she had never heard of a cultivator entering the Void Realm to break through to the true sovereign realm. Thus, when this happened, Bai Fei was completely unprepared. It was too terrifying. Those unknown gazes were like icy, slippery tongues silently licking over, causing one to shudder. Was it because of the Void Realm? Or did Qin Yu himself have some secret? Bai Fei couldn't be sure of this. But there was no doubt, because they were in trouble, big trouble. But breaking through in the Void Realm was Qin Yu's only choice. Once they returned to the desolate domain world, Qin Shi Huang would instantly descend. Thus, they could only brace themselves and continue. Bai Fei took a deep breath. Her skin became even whiter and more dazzling, and her face was covered in frost. She had already prepared herself for a great battle. But for some unknown reason, the existences in the darkness did not make a move. Moments later, the Void Realm was still roaring and tumbling, but the feeling of being locked on by those icy eyes had already disappeared. Who? Bai Fei let out a long breath, a puzzled look on her face. That was it. The thunder was loud, but the rain was small. It wasn't raining at all. Was that just an illusion? No, it definitely wasn't. Then were those existences in the darkness playing with them? Deep within the Void Realm stood a woman. Her eyes were calm as she looked into the endless darkness. You cannot touch him. Whoever dares to touch him will die. The darkness tumbled silently, but a soundless anger spread out from within. The woman lightly said, I don't care about reason. I only care about strength. If any of you think your fist can be harder and bigger than mine, then you can make a move now. Otherwise, she lifted a hand and pointed. Scram right now. The woman was enraged. The darkness fell silent, gradually returning to tranquility. In the end, they didn't dare to offend the person in front of them. They could only helplessly retreat. The woman turned and looked towards Qin Yu. If Qin Yu were here, he would immediately recognize her. She was Yao Tao, who had gone missing after the seal was broken. She was in the Void Realm, and today, she had even appeared to help Qin Yu avoid a great calamity. A complex look appeared in her eyes. Then, she gently sighed and walked deep into the Void Realm. She had her own mission and couldn't see Qin Yu. But this time, she could only look at him from afar and feel his aura. This was likely the last time the two of them interacted. Yao Tao gradually moved further and further away, vanishing into the Void Realm. The sun and moon vortex vanished. Qin Yu opened his eyes, and faint traces of the Tao were released from his body. Bang! A phantom of the great Tao suddenly appeared. It had 9 bends and was long and winding, like a divine dragon that soared into the 9 heavens. A powerful aura burst out of his body. The mountain river sword appeared of its own accord and circled around Qin Yu. It let out an excited hum and howled. Qin Yu raised his hand and clenched it. Swish! The mountain river sword fell into his hand. Bai Fei subconsciously took a step back, her expression shocked. An Emperor Realm sword cultivator. A sword cultivator who was said to be able to fight above his realm was actually this terrifying after breaking through to the Emperor Realm. At this moment, Bai Fei felt a strong sense of threat from the sword-wielding Qin Yu. An Emperor Realm cultivator who could threaten a long-lived species. Qin Yu was clearly different. Congratulations on your breakthrough, my lord. Bai Fei bowed, her tone even more respectful. Qin Yu nodded and turned to look into the distance. For some reason, he felt a familiar aura just now. But now he felt nothing. After a moment's thought, he said, Did anything else happen when I broke through? Bai Fei said, Yes. He recounted everything that had happened just now to Zhang Xian. Qin Yu frowned. Are you sure there's an unknown existence spying on us? Bai Fei smiled wryly. I didn't sense any tangible aura, nor did I see them appear. But that feeling can't be wrong. The words of a long-lived species were trustworthy. A trace of seriousness appeared on Qin Yu's face. If the enemy was so close, there was no reason for them to retreat quietly. There must be some other reason for this. He thought of the faint familiar aura he'd sensed just now. Could it be related? Bai Fei said, Did you sense anything, my lord? Qin Yu thought for a moment, then shook his head. Nothing. He took a deep breath and exhaled, looking deeper into the void. This was the direction the true Emperor Qin Yu had killed had gone to before his death. Was there something there? Bai Fei said, My lord, you've broken through to the true Emperor realm. Let's leave. We're too deep into the void, and the sea of confusion is extremely dangerous. It looks calm now, but if something unexpected happens, we could still be lost here. Qin Yu was silent for a few breaths, then said, I've broken through to the true Emperor realm, and my connection with the God Nation has been strengthened. We should be fine if we go further in. Bai Fei smiled bitterly. All right, my lord, please be careful. Qin Yu grunted and stepped forward. The power of the Sea of Confusion was just as Bai Fei had said, extremely terrifying. This place was undoubtedly the deepest part of the void. Qin, you could even hear the sound of crashing waves. His own perception of the outside world was becoming increasingly blurry. His connection with the divine kingdom was also weakening, almost to the point of being intermittent. Bai Fei endured and gritted her teeth. My lord, we can't go any further. Let's leave this place quickly. Qin Yu stopped and looked forward. We're here. Bai Fei followed his line of sight, and her expression changed. In the pitch-black, cold darkness of the void, an enormous creature was floating. In terms of size, it was almost comparable to a human city. Its life force had been severed, and the enormous creature's body was riddled with countless wounds. Some even pierced through its body, and white bones could be seen. This was an enormous creature of unknown origin. It had been killed in the depths of the void, and despite the river of time washing over it for countless years, its corpse showed no signs of decay. Moreover, the most terrifying thing was that even though the enormous creature was dead, it was still emitting a terrifying aura that made one feel despair. It was like a majestic god mountain. Just its gaze was enough to make one feel endless reverence. Long-lived species, Bai Fei murmured. She looked at the enormous creature in front of her, dazed. Long-lived species could not be killed. This was the qualification granted by heaven and earth for eternal life. She was the best example. Even though she had been punished by the heavens, and her body had been split and suppressed, she had still lived to this day. But the enormous creature in front of her was dead. Its body was still there, but its soul was gone, and its consciousness had long been shattered. This was a true death. How could this be? Bai Fei's gaze fell on Qin Yu, full of fear and confusion. However, Qin Yu's next words caused Bai Fei's heart to tremble again. The one who killed it was Qin Shi Huang. Back then, Vast Yangswell had said that Qin Shi Huang had killed a long-lived species, but Bai Fei had not believed it. Because she was a long-lived species, she naturally knew that this was impossible. But now, Qin Yu had found the corpse of the enormous creature in front of her. Therefore, his words were undoubtedly very credible. How is this possible? How is this possible? Bai Fei's face was full of shock. Qin Yu said, Let's go over. He took the lead and quickly arrived beside the enormous creature's corpse. Looking at it from afar, he could already feel a powerful pressure. Only when he got closer could he truly feel the terrifying pressure of a long-lived species. Fortunately, Qin Yu had already become a true emperor, and he was a true emperor of the sword with unparalleled battle strength. Otherwise, facing the enormous creature's corpse, he might not even be able to breathe. Bai Fei's expression was solemn, but she had already regained her composure. Her movements were faster than Qin Yu's, and she had already begun to fly to the enormous creature's body to examine its true cause of death. And the truth was as Qin Yu had said. It had been killed by someone. And the person who had killed it was Qin Shi Huang. Because in the countless wounds, Qin Shi Huang's aura could not be mistaken. Qin Yu stood in front of the enormous creature, looking at the wound between its eyebrows. This was a fatal wound. In his mind, a scene suddenly appeared. In the depths of the endless void, the enormous creature was bathed in blood, rearing back its head and roaring in anger. Across from it was the cold and stern Qin Shi Huang, his aura suppressing the heavens. Suddenly, Qin Shi Huang lifted his hand and grasped. Brilliant golden light erupted, crashing into the enormous creature's head like a bolt of silk. It was killed on the spot, and at this time, Qin Shi Huang's eyes were a faint gold. Shua. Qin Yu's consciousness withdrew, his complexion becoming increasingly solemn. Golden eyes. Qin Yu felt that these eyes were somewhat familiar, as if he had seen them somewhere before. As he was lost in thought, Bai Fei drew back. She bitterly said, "My lord, what you said was correct. It was indeed Qin Shi Huang who killed it." Her tone was a bit absent-minded and puzzled. Qin Yu said, "It seems that vast Yang's was correct. Qin Shi Huang is indeed invincible in the world. His origins are definitely not ordinary." Bai Fei nodded. "My lord, you must be even more careful. Even if you have broken into the true sovereign realm, you absolutely cannot face Qin Shi Huang. A true sovereign sword cultivator was indeed powerful. He could even make her feel threatened. But Qin Shi Huang had actually personally killed an everlasting creature a long, long time ago. Just how terrifying was that? Qin Yu said, "Don't worry. Even if I become a true empress, I might not be Qin Shi Huang's match, but it won't be difficult for me to protect myself." A sharp light flashed in his eyes. He looked at the corpse of the enormous creature. Bai Fei, can this corpse be considered an immortal existence? Bai Fei nodded. Of course it can be, and it is a top immortal existence because it is the corpse of an everlasting creature, a complete corpse. She looked at Qin Yu. "If my lord can refine this giant creature's corpse, your strength will surely rise, and you will become an unprecedented immortal. There might even be a chance that you will obtain the unique characteristics of an everlasting creature, becoming undying and everlasting, existing forever in this world." Qin Yu was silent for several breaths of time. He shook his head. "I have no plans to refine the giant creature's corpse. Perhaps it has a better place." Chapter 1801. Bai Fei frowned. "Your Excellency," she didn't understand why Qin Yu would give up. The giant beast corpse in front of her was the complete corpse of a long-lived species. It was undoubtedly a top immortal object. Obtaining it not only meant an endless lifespan, but also great power. Qin Yu thought for a moment. Becoming an immortal is a fork in the road. Once you step on it, it will be difficult to break through the limits of life and truly transform into a long-lived species. "How do you know all this?" Qin Yu shook his head. "I don't." The seemingly contradictory answer actually had a deep meaning that was horrifying to think about. Bai Fei's eyes widened. "Your Excellency, you mean," Qin Yu said lightly, "I have many secrets. You know some of them, but not all of them." He let out a breath, a mocking smile on his lips. "In fact, there are some secrets that even I don't know the answer to. Don't you think your life has been a failure?" Bai Fei didn't know what to say. Thankfully, Qin Yu was just expressing his feelings. He didn't expect to receive an answer. He flicked his sleeves and put away the giant beast corpse. "Let's go." Since he had reached the true Emperor realm, it was best not to stay in the Void realm any longer. He turned and walked towards the divine kingdom symbol. The sound of flowing water appeared once more, as if there was some invisible power that sensed its prey was about to retreat. But all of this had no effect on Qin Yu. He continued towards the desolate domain world. Finally, the sound of flowing water disappeared. Qin Yu could already feel the clear coordinates of the divine kingdom. He lifted his hand, grasped the mountain and river sword, and slashed forward. Rumble, 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 the darkness split apart, and Qin Yu stepped in. In the distant divine kingdom, at the giant altar, the great priest knelt devoutly. Below him were countless believers. They all began to loudly chant the name of the sovereign Lord, the most exalted of all. The invisible power of faith shook and burned. All of a sudden, a rumbling sound rang out in the sky. The space around them shattered as a gigantic rift appeared, piercing through the entire sky. Chinyu grasped the mountain and river sword and stepped out of the crack. The burning power of faith instantly gathered. It wrapped around him, forming a 100,000-foot-tall figure that held a giant sword. It was like the descent of a god. My ruler. The great priest was extremely excited. He kissed the altar again and again. Your humble believers welcome your arrival. At the foot of the altar, the countless believers also descended into a frenzy. Chinyu hesitated for a moment. Then, he flicked his sleeves, and endless power of faith turned into motes of light that sprinkled down. At this moment, it was as if it was raining heavily. Chant my name, obey my will. Every light diffused into the body of the believers, and their power was instantly strengthened. The great shaman on the altar received even more gifts. His entire person underwent a heaven-shaking transformation, and he instantly recovered his youth. My Lord is supreme. Swish Chinyu took a step forwards and left the divine kingdom. But he could clearly feel that the connection between him and the divine kingdom had become even closer. The faith of the believers became more and more devout. Although it sounded a bit strange, the truth was that the divine kingdom was of tremendous use to him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to enter the Void Realm this time. He wouldn't have been able to fight against the Sea of Chaos and become a real emperor through slaughter. Sir, where do we go now? Xianyang, true sovereign Xiongji, concealed his aura and disguised himself as an outsider, hiding outside Xianyang City. Wait inside? He was not crazy. Recently, the aura from the Qin Imperial Palace had become more and more terrifying. Even though he was outside Xianyang City, true sovereign Xiongji could feel the pressure and anger from Emperor Qin. His heart trembled. He didn't dare to think about why Qin had asked him to wait in Xianyang City. Was he going to do something in the great Qin imperial capital? True sovereign Xiongji was afraid. He had yet to act, but he already felt uneasy. This was Xianyang City, Emperor Qin's absolute home ground. Acting here was no different from courting death. No, absolutely not. No matter what he was going to do, he had to stop Chinyu. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. True sovereign Xiongji, who was standing in front of the window and looking at the imperial palace, suddenly changed his expression. Who is it? Shock and anger appeared in his eyes. It was hard to imagine that he hadn't sensed anything before the knock on the door. It's me. Hearing this voice, true sovereign Xiongji's eyes widened, and he rushed over to open the door. Qin! He quickly moved aside and waited for Chinyu to enter. He looked around and only heaved a sigh of relief when he didn't sense anything wrong. With a bang, the door slammed shut. True sovereign Xiongji bitterly smiled. Sect Master Qin, why did you come here? This is Xianyang City. Chinyu said, I told you to wait here, so of course I know. True sovereign Xiongji's bitter smile deepened. I didn't mean that, forget it. Sect Leader Qin, can you tell me what exactly you want to do now? Chinyu had a calm expression. Let me correct you. It's not that I want to do anything, but the will of the Lord. He looked at true sovereign Xiongji. You shouldn't have any objections to this, right? True sovereign Xiongji rubbed his face. There was no trace of his previous cold and unyielding attitude. Sect Master Qin, it's just the two of us, so let's be frank. He took a deep breath. Acting in Xianyang City, no matter what you want to do, is not a wise decision. So, we must think twice before acting. We cannot be impulsive. Chinyu said, You're right. True sovereign Xiongji's happy expression froze before it could spread. So, I made preparations before coming to Xianyang City. In other words, the arrow was knocked on the bowstring and had to be released. Sect Master Qin. Chinyu raised a hand to interrupt him. Xiongji, I won't send you to your death. In truth, what you need to do is very simple. You only need to stand by my side. Xiongji's existence was a declaration in itself. He represented the 13th floor. The 13th floor wanted Qin Yu to help him withstand the heavenly retribution's thunder in order to obtain a method to break through to the longevity seed realm. There was no way he couldn't pay the price. Move his lips and then hide behind them to enjoy the fruits of others' labor? That was impossible. Qin Yu wanted to drag them down with him. True sovereign Xiong Ji's complexion changed. Sect Master Qin. Qin Yu grabbed him. He lightly said, I didn't say this because I wanted to discuss it with you. Do it. Hum. With the cry of a sword, a terrifying sword aura erupted. The residents, the two people, were instantly disintegrated into powder. Bang! Sword shadows shot into the highest heavens. Wild fluctuations immediately alarmed Xianyang City. Rumble, rumble, rumble. In the skies, the clouds violently tumbled. With the roar of a dragon, the great Qin Imperial Capital's guardian array had been activated. True sovereign Xiongji's eyes widened in horror. In such a short time, Qin Yu had broken through again. If it wasn't right in front of him, he wouldn't have believed it. He wanted to struggle, but at this moment, he didn't dare. Qin Yu had already made his move. If he held Qin Yu back, true sovereign Xiongji had no doubt that the mountain river sword would land on him. Moreover, the annihilation power in his body was only temporarily dormant. If he fought against Qin Yu, he would definitely die. He could only grit his teeth and continue to stand by Qin Yu's side. As for the floor master's investigation, that would have to wait until they passed this hurdle. Boom! Space shattered. Like a giant beast bearing its fangs and claws, it descended upon Xianyang City. Qin Yu held the mountain river sword and looked at the Imperial Palace. Emperor Qin, I'm here. Imperial Palace. Emperor Qin stood up. His eyes were calm without the slightest fluctuation. He took a step forward and appeared in front of Qin Yu in the next instant. His cold gaze fell on Qin Yu. Qin Yu, you're braver than I thought. Qin Yu raised his hand and slashed down with the mountain river sword. This was probably the first time in countless years that an Emperor Realm sword cultivator had appeared in this world. At this moment, the entire world witnessed the power of an Emperor Realm sword cultivator. Boom! The sword fell, and the world collapsed. Everything in its path was destroyed. Nothing could stop it. This was the power of an Emperor Realm sword cultivator. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that they could destroy the world. But Emperor Qin was even stronger because he was eternally undefeated and invincible. Facing Qin Yu's sword, he took a step forward and punched. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion rang out, and the vibrating ring-shaped impact was like a tempestuous wave that stretched out endlessly in all directions. At this moment, the sky above Xianyang was a forbidden zone for life. Anything in it would be completely annihilated. True sovereign Xiong Ji stood to the side. His face was pale, and beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. He knew that Qin Yu, who had broken through to the true Emperor realm, must be very powerful, and the invincible Emperor Qin was even more unimaginable. But the power that burst out in the exchange still shook his mind and made him fall into an uncontrollable fear. True sovereign Xiong Ji knew very well that he would die if he was on either side of the exchange. He had no chance of escaping. Qin Yu retreated. Each step created a deafening explosion. The mountain river, sword in his hand, vibrated violently. It could feel the pressure from Emperor Qin. He was indeed strong, inconceivably strong, as expected of an existence who had personally killed a long-lived species. Sect Master Qin, what should we do? True sovereign Xiongji's voice was trembling. Qin Yu had a calm expression. I'm fine. Before he returned to the Waste Realm, he had already ascertained the prowess of the Qin Emperor, and he knew clearly that he had no chance of winning. That was why he came to Xianyang City, even though he knew that he couldn't win. First, Qin Yu had to show himself and display his strength. This would be of great help to what he was about to do next. Secondly, it was not Qin Yu who was going to fight the Qin Emperor today. The opening had been completed. Although his appearance wasn't perfect, this sword strike was more than enough to show how strong he was. Therefore, It was time for the main character of today's battle to appear. Qin Yu flicked his sleeves. Boom, a terrifying giant beast appeared in Xianyang. It opened its mouth and let out a roar. A terrifying aura exploded from its body. The incident in Xianyang had already happened. It attracted the attention of true emperors from all over the world. After all, this was the first time in history that someone dared to harm Xianyang. All of them cried out in alarm. Eternal realm. A long-lived species. The true emperor's projections widened their eyes in shock. When Qin Emperor and Qin Yu fought before, it could be said that they were both at the true emperor realm, but there was a massive disparity in strength between them. But the appearance of the long-lived species made them speechless. All the true emperors in the world knew that the emperor realm wasn't the limit of cultivation. There was still a long way to go. That was the eternal realm. But the eternal realm was more like a legend. It was a realm that could be seen, but not reached. After all, even the invincible Qin Emperor and the leader of the 13th floor couldn't reach the eternal realm. But today they saw with their own eyes that Qin Yu had summoned a long-lived species beast with a flick of his sleeves. The true emperors believed that their eyes couldn't be wrong. The pressure from a higher level was the best evidence. Qin Yu of the heaven-splitting sword sect can summon an eternal realm beast. No wonder he has the confidence to kill Xianyang City today. The great Qin Empire is in danger. The true emperors looked serious. Perhaps they were about to witness the most powerful reshuffle in the history of the Waste Realm. Today, if the Qin Emperor died, the invincible Great Qin would naturally vanish. The Waste Realm would usher in a new structure. But things were different from what they had imagined. The Qin Emperor looked at the beast calmly. Qin Yu, it seems that you entered the Void Realm to break through and become a true emperor. A trace of gold appeared in the depths of his eyes. But since you brought the giant beast back, you should be well aware that if I could kill it once in the past, I can naturally kill it a second time. Not to mention that it is only a body that has been reincarnated in another body. He raised his hand and pressed forward. Boom! The sky suddenly lowered. A terrifying pressure covered the beast. It let out a shocking roar. At the same time, Bai Feifei's anxious voice sounded in Qin Yu's mind. My lord, the Qin Emperor is right. I'm just a fake. I can't hold on for long. You must hurry. Qin Yu turned and left. Swish! His figure disappeared. The next moment, he appeared in the depths of the Imperial Palace. The Imperial advisor walked out, his expression cold and his eyes heavy. Sect Master Qin, this is the Great Qin Imperial Palace. Please leave. Qin Yu was expressionless. Extreme. Swoosh. True Emperor Extreme, Qiongji appeared. At this moment, an earth-shattering sound came from outside the Imperial Palace. The Qin Emperor and the beast were already fighting. The terrifying energy fluctuations caused all of Xianyang to shake. Stop the Imperial advisor. Don't let him get in my way. True Emperor Extreme Qiongji gritted his teeth. Okay, he had nowhere to retreat. He could only bite the bullet and follow Qin Yu to the end. The only good news was that the Tower Master had yet to appear. This meant that the Tower Master did not object to what he was doing. At least, he chose to acquiesce. Of course, with the appearance of this long-lived giant beast, Qin Yu's image in true, sovereign Qiongji's heart became even more enigmatic. This was also an important reason. The Imperial advisor sneered. Extreme Qiong, you think you can stop me? He waved his sleeves. 3 corpse puppets appeared, each emitting a monstrous, deathly aura. Although they could not compare to true emperors, the 3 corpse puppets were enough to delay true Emperor Extreme Qiongji. Qin Yu took out the boundary ring and threw it to true Emperor Extreme Qiongji. Take them to the Void Realm. Yes. True Emperor Extreme Qiongji cupped his hands. Boom! The boundary ring exploded, instantly covering the area. It tore the space apart and disappeared. The Imperial advisor and the 3 powerful corpse puppets were forcefully pulled into the Void Realm. True Emperor Extreme Qiongji was definitely not a match, but with the boundary ring, it was not difficult to trap the Imperial advisor for a while. Swish! Qin Yu took another step. Hum! The space shook. It was the Great Qin Imperial Palace's restriction to prevent true emperors from entering. Qin Yu snorted. The space cracked inch by inch, like a mirror that had been smashed on the ground. He charged in. Time was of the essence. He did not know how long Bai Fei could last. Qin Yu had to hurry. Who dares to trespass the Imperial Palace's forbidden area? Kill! The Great Qin Imperial Guards guarding the forbidden area roared. They were very strong and wore heavy armor. If they worked together, even an ordinary true emperor would find it difficult to kill them all. Unfortunately, it was Qin Yu who had come today. He raised a mountain and river sword and slashed down. Wherever the sword aura passed, there were countless severed limbs. With one strike, he killed all the Great Qin Imperial Guards guarding the forbidden area of the Imperial Palace. Swish! Qin Yu appeared in front of a dry well. He looked down and could not see any light. Bai Fei's heart was suppressed here. Once she obtained the heart, she would be able to recover half the strength of a long-lived beast and become a great help to Qin Yu. Boom! He slashed down, and the mouth of the well instantly shattered. Qin Yu jumped in. Chapter 1802. What was longevity? When one's level of existence rose, one's body would also undergo corresponding changes. The second heart that appeared in the chest was the eternal heart, the source of eternal power. Bai Fei's eternal heart was suppressed within the Great Qin Imperial Palace. The moment Qin Yu entered the well, the Qin Emperor sensed him. He punched the giant beast back and pointed at the palace. A dazzling golden light erupted from his fingertip, instantly turning into a golden dragon that roared and rushed into the palace. In the next moment, the darkness in front of Qin Yu was torn apart by the golden light. He suddenly raised his head and saw the giant golden dragon above him. Its eyes were cold and filled with endless murderous intent. A terrifying aura emanated from the golden dragon. It gave off a feeling that it was no weaker than the Qin emperors. This was because it was the manifestation of the Great Qin Empire's destiny, the will of the entire divine kingdom. And now, Qin Yu was in the Great Qin Empire, the Golden Dragon's absolute domain. Here, its strength increased infinitely. But Qin Yu didn't fear it. He looked at the Golden Dragon. Instead of retreating, he took a step forward. "Back down!" Qin Yu shouted. The Golden Dragon roared and rushed over. But as it approached Qin Yu, its eyes filled with killing intent began to struggle. Boom! The dragon brushed past Qin Yu and smashed into the ground. It stared at Qin Yu with a blank expression. This was because it couldn't figure out why this person in front of it also had the mark of the Great Qin Emperor. It was weak, but it truly existed. Qin Yu looked at it. "This is a struggle between my sect and the Qin Emperor. Just watch." He turned and continued deeper into the well. Thump, thump. A calm and rhythmic heartbeat came from in front of him. The ground and the surrounding walls were engraved with a powerful suppression array. Even a true emperor would find it difficult to escape. But now, this array was silent and motionless. This was because it could sense that the one who came here today was the Great Qin Emperor. Interesting. A light laugh sounded out. The Qin Emperor probably never thought that he would encounter such a situation one day, right? "Young man, what is your name? I can actually feel the aura of another part of your body from your body." Qin Yu stopped. He looked up at the floating heart in front of him. It was constantly contracting and beating, emitting thumping sounds. Qin Yu, unlike Bai Fei's own heart, this heart of eternity had some golden lines on its surface, and specks of golden light flowed within it. Upon hearing Qin Yu's reply, the heart of eternity fell silent. Qin Yu stepped forward. "Since you've already sensed Bai Fei's aura on my body, then you should be well aware of my goal in coming here today. I hope that you can leave this place with me and become one with Bai Fei," the eternal heart replied. "All right." Qin Yu frowned, puzzlement in his eyes. This was because everything had gone too smoothly. He was prepared to use force to suppress the heart of eternity. After all, to put it nicely, it was called fusing into one body. To put it bluntly, once they fused, it would only be one Bai Fei. "Why?" Qin Yu quietly said. The eternal heart replied, "Why are you asking so many questions? Me agreeing to your request is the best outcome. Take me away from here. Qin Yu reached out and grasped it. The heart of eternity flew into his hand. It had truly given up on resisting and allowed itself to be suppressed. There was definitely something wrong with this. But now was not the time to pursue this point. Qin Yu turned and left. With a single step, he left the imperial palace and arrived in the skies above Xianyang. The battle between the giant beast and Qin Shi Huang was becoming increasingly intense. If not for the great array protecting Xianyang and the nation's destiny suppressing it, it would have long been destroyed. Bai Fei Fei, let's go. With a low shout, Qin Yu prepared to leave. His goal today was to obtain the heart of eternity. Killing Qin Shi Huang, he could not do it. At least for now, Qin Yu's strength was far from enough. One had to recognize reality and not inflate one's ego. The giant beast roared and forcefully resisted Qin Shi Huang's attack. When it was sent flying, it shattered space and was about to escape. Suddenly, Qin Shi Huang roared, "Qin Yu, look at who she is!" Boom! A cage smashed through a hall in the imperial palace and soared into the skies. Inside was an unconscious woman. Qin Yu's pupils shrank. Yinqing, back in the western wilderness. In order to prevent any accidents from happening to her, Qin Yu had deliberately kept her by his side. He never expected that Qin Shi Huang would discover him. Qin Shi Huang's figure appeared in front of the cage, his face expressionless. "If you dare escape, I will kill her." Qin Yu clenched his fists, his face ashen. "Qin Shi Huang, using your status to kidnap a woman, I am the son of heaven, so I naturally want face. But sometimes I don't want it." Qin Shi Huang lifted his hand and tapped the cage. Crackle! Crackle! Countless bolts of lightning exploded. Yinqing woke up with a cry of pain. When she saw Qin Yu, her eyes widened. "Qin Yu, hurry and escape. Qin Shi Huang is going to harm you." Qin Shi Huang said, "This woman is quite sincere towards you. I used some methods, but was unable to get what I wanted from her. Perhaps you see that she is unharmed now, but under this dress, her flesh has already rotted and regenerated. Who knows how many reincarnations she has gone through. Qin Yu, you can run away. I will kill her, and that could be considered freeing this woman." The giant beast roared. Bai Fei Fei's anxious voice sounded in his mind. "My lord, hurry and escape. This is the great Qin imperial capital. Qin Shi Huang is stalling for time and must have other methods. If we don't leave now, we might not make it." Qin Yu looked at Yinqing, motionless. "Qin Yu, I will give you a chance to save her. As long as you can take a punch from me without dying, I will let her go. The entire desolate region can bear witness to this. I will not go back on my word." Qin Shi Huang calmly spoke, his voice reverberating through the skies. Bai Fei Fei looked at Qin Yu, who remained where he was, her heart filled with anxiety. "Don't be stupid. She was just a woman. If she died, then she died." Qin Shi Huang was a terrifying existence that could even kill long-lived beings. Taking a punch from him was no different from seeking death. "Okay," Qin Yu readily agreed. "My lord," Bai Fei Fei screamed, "you're crazy. Let's hurry and escape." Qin Yu shook his head. "There are some people you must save. This is a favor owed many years ago. You must return it. I don't want you to return it. I don't even know you. Qin Yu, hurry and leave." Yinqing screamed. Qin Shi Huang stepped forward, clenching his fist and punching down. His eyes instantly appeared with a faint layer of gold. It was extremely faint, but when it appeared, it concealed all of his emotions. He was like a god of the 9 heavens, indifferent and emotionless, overlooking all life. At this moment, Qin Shi Huang was invincible in the world. Bang! Beneath this fist, the concept of space and time seemed to have disappeared. A terrifying strength was released, as if it could destroy all things in the world. Qin Yu took a deep breath. His connection with the little blue lamp was already connected. In the next moment, it would erupt. But at this time, within the cage, Yinqing suddenly closed her eyes and then opened them again. She closed her eyes and then opened them again. In the time it took for a single breath, Her eyes had turned a light gold, exactly the same as Qin Shi Huang's. Bang! The cage exploded. Yinqing stepped out, blocking Qin Shi Huang's fist. With a wave of her hand, she wiped it away. An invisible strength acted upon her body. Her dress rapidly stretched out, becoming incomparably gorgeous and dazzling. At this moment, her appearance was still that of Yinqing, but her temperament had undergone an earth-shaking change. She was like a goddess, noble and inviolable. "Qin Yu, you didn't. You have disappointed me." She chuckled. She turned around, the emotions in her eyes causing Qin Yu to feel as if he had been struck by lightning. He took a deep breath. "Teacher Liao," his voice trembled. Qin Yu also trembled. He never imagined that there would be a day when he would see her again. That woman who had gradually faded away in his arms in the past was now standing right in front of him. Yinqing, or perhaps he should call her Teacher Liao now. She blinked, a mischievous smile on her face. "Don't cry. You are a real man. I will laugh at you." Qin Yu took a deep breath. "Who's crying? You woman, you have gone too far. It's been so long. Since you are her, why didn't you recognize me earlier?" Teacher Liao smiled. "There are some things that I can't decide on my own." She looked at Qin Yu, joy and relief in her eyes. "But the little man from the past really surprised me. In such a short period of time, he has become so formidable." She lifted a hand and gestured. "Really, just a little bit more, and he would have caught up to me." Bai Feifei was left completely stunned. A second ago, Yinqing was just an ordinary woman. But in the blink of an eye, she had turned into a mighty goddess that could block Qin Shi Huang's attack. What was going on? This Qin Yu, just how many other great figures were hiding around him that she didn't know about? This person in front of her had an unfathomable aura, like a boundless sea of clouds, vast and mighty. She couldn't see the end of it. Even though she was a long-lived being, she still found it difficult to breathe at this moment. Qin Shi Huang suddenly lifted a hand. Bang! A giant golden dragon shot into the skies. In the blink of an eye, it split into 9, scattering around Xianyang and forming a cage of 9 dragons. A terrifying, suppressive aura erupted from within. "You finally made your move," Qin Shi Huang slowly said. He stared at Teacher Liao, his face calm. Teacher Liao smiled at Qin Yu. Then she turned around. "Are you blind? Can't you see that I'm talking to my little man right now? You deserve to be beaten." Bang! Her figure instantly vanished. In the next moment, she appeared beside Qin Shi Huang. She had sent him flying away with a single punch. Qin Shi Huang smashed into the 9 dragons' cage. There was a heaven-shaking explosion, and a terrifying shockwave was released. Xianyang City finally couldn't withstand the impact of this level of strength. The earth violently shook, cracking and breaking apart. "Ah, run! Xianyang City is broken. Your Majesty, save us!" Wails filled the air. The true sovereigns watching the battle felt as if they had fallen into an icy cavern. Their projections trembled. The battle between Qin Shi Huang and the giant beast had already shocked them. They never imagined that there would be an even stronger follow-up. Just who was this woman called Teacher Liao? She was actually able to face Qin Shi Huang head-on. This had already surpassed the limits of a true sovereign strength. Qin Shi Huang lifted a hand and pressed down. Everything within Xianyang City came to a standstill. Time and space froze, and the panic on everyone's faces froze. "Your fists aren't strong enough." Teacher Liao raised an eyebrow. "Then give me a few more punches." She turned around. "Qin Yu, you should leave. You don't have the qualifications to interfere in the following battle." Qin Yu stepped forwards. "I promise I will find you." He took a deep breath and nodded. "Okay." Shua, his figure flashed, and he appeared in front of the 9 dragons' cage. Qin Yu lifted a hand and pressed it. Rumble, rumble. The 9 dragons' cage shook violently. The killing intent in Qin Shi Huang's eyes deepened, and he released an icy aura. Teacher Liao said lightly, "Qin Shi Huang, you won't have the chance to kill him today. Let Qin Yu go, otherwise you won't be able to stay in Xianyang City today." There was silence on the other side. Qin Shi Huang's aura slowly retracted. Okay. A crack appeared on the Nine Dragons' cage. Qin Yu stepped in. Bai Fei Fei, who had transformed into a giant beast, hurried to follow behind. Shua. The crack disappeared. Standing outside Xianyang City, one looked back. Everything within was isolated. All one could see was a giant cage that supported the heavens. Boom, boom, it shook violently. The battle between Qin Shi Huang and teacher Liao had begun. Shua. Bai Fei Fei appeared, her face pale. My lord, let's hurry. We're too close. If anything happens, we'll be in big trouble. Qin Yu nodded. He flicked his sleeves and put away the giant beast's corpse. Shua. The two of them disappeared without a trace. In the next moment, the two appeared far away, above a cloud. Qin Yu stood high in the clouds, looking straight in the direction of Xianyang, even though he knew very well that he couldn't see anything. Although he knew that he couldn't see anything, he still felt a bit better. Bai Fei Fei quietly stood behind him, not saying a single word. Although she desperately wanted to obtain the eternal heart, with Qin Yu's current condition, it was best to wait a bit longer. Time slowly passed. Every second felt like an eternity. The air pressure around Qin Yu became increasingly low and heavy. Worry appeared in Bai Fei Fei's eyes. It seemed that this woman was very important to Qin Yu. If something happened to her, she didn't care too much about teacher Liao. What she feared was that Qin Yu would go crazy again and risk his life to find Qin Shi Huang. That would be a big joke. If a fragment of the blazing sun appeared, dealing with Qin Shi Huang wouldn't be a problem. But doing so would be the same as committing suicide. Now, she could only hope that teacher Liao was fine and could retreat safely. Suddenly, the space in front of him shook. Qin Yu smiled. Teacher Liao walked out. She glanced at him. What? Are you afraid I won't be able to return? Don't worry. Although Qin Shi Huang is strong, this old lady isn't someone to be trifled with. She raised an eyebrow, a smug expression on her face. Qin Yu reached out and pulled her into his arms, hugging her tightly. Teacher Liao frowned. Qin Yu, tofu was placed in front of you, but you didn't even take it. Why are you so impatient now? Qin Yu didn't say anything. He just hugged her even harder. Teacher Liao stopped and reached out to hug him. Bai Fei Fei cleverly turned around. Her figure flickered and she disappeared. No matter what happened next, based on what she had seen, it wasn't appropriate for her to stay any longer. One had to know one's own limits. That's enough. If you hug any more, you'll really be taking advantage of me. Teacher Liao pushed Qin Yu away and rubbed her chest. She grumbled. It hurts for being squeezed. Qin Yu revealed a trace of awkwardness. You should be more careful in the future. How can you do something like that in front of man? Teacher Liao rolled her eyes at him. You weren't embarrassed when you hugged me so tightly just now. Now you remember? Men always say one thing and do another. Qin Yu was defeated. There were very few women he couldn't handle, and Teacher Liao was definitely one of them. Back then, just as she was about to speak, she was interrupted. Let's not talk about what happened back then. In short, Big Sister's doing very well. As you can see, I can still hold down Qin Shi Huang and give him a good beating. She looked at Qin Yu. Let's talk about you. I'm quite curious about what happened in the past. Qin Yu nodded and pulled her to sit down. Let's start from the Abyss world. Chapter 1803. Great Qin's imperial capital, Xianyang. In ruins, there were countless deaths and injuries. The earth was still collapsing and the sky was constantly shattering. Massive cracks appeared. Qin Emperor landed in the imperial palace. Suddenly, space twisted and the imperial advisor walked out. His complexion changed. Your Majesty. The Qin Emperor in front of him had white sideburns and wrinkles all over his face. What happened? Qin Emperor lightly said, It's nothing. It's just some backlash. Her injuries are worse than mine. The imperial advisor's pupil shrank. She attacked. Qin Emperor nodded. It is as I expected. This woman should know some things. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to keep her here. A sharp light exploded in his eyes. Qin Yu's trump card has been destroyed by me. Pass down the order that anyone who finds or kills Qin, you will be rewarded with a king with a different surname. The imperial advisor frowned. Your Majesty, this matter. Qin Emperor waved his hand. I have made my decision. Imperial advisor, there is no need to say anything else. Qin, you had to die. Liao Shi's appearance made Qin Emperor feel an incomparably intense threat. This had nothing to do with strength, but rather a sense of destiny. It was as if Qin Yu's appearance was to end his great Qin. Yes, the imperial advisor bowed. In a single day, the news spread throughout the central wilderness. Reward a king with a different surname. Reward a king with a different surname. This was an unprecedented temptation. Killing Qin Yu might be difficult, but finding his whereabouts was only a matter of luck. The central wilderness was boiling. At this time, Qin Yu was still lying in the clouds, talking to Liao Shi. He spoke in detail without missing anything. He told her everything that had happened after they parted. It was as if after doing this, Liao Shi hadn't been absent and they had been together all these years. Liao Shi listened patiently and didn't interrupt Qin Yu's endless narration. But there would always be a time when he finished. When he talked about becoming a true emperor in the Void Realm and go to Xianying, he had to stop. Your experiences were wonderful and rich, Liao Shi commented. The only regret is that there weren't any wonderful stories. Qin Yu, your cultivation is already so strong and your looks are top-notch. Why do you have to play around with your chastity? Living isn't just for cultivation. The body will always have needs and can also feed the spiritual world, making one happier. So you have to change this. Don't live like a monk in the future. It's not good for your health. Qin Yu remained silent. Liao Shi also fell silent. How much longer? One day, I want to take you to see someone. Qin Chi. Yes. Liao Shi stood up. Let's go then. Shua. With a flick of her sleeve, the two of them disappeared. In the next moment, somewhere outside Sky Bull City, space silently collapsed. In the Niu family in the city, Niu Dingtian's expression changed slightly. Suppressing his hesitation, he gritted his teeth and took a step forward, appearing right before Liao Shi and Qin Yu. Niu Dingtian pays his respects to His Excellency. He respectfully bowed. As he glanced at Qin Yu, he groaned inwardly. Qin Yu said, Senior Ox, there is no need to worry. My sect is only here to see Chi. I will not bring any trouble to Heavenly Bull City. Niu Dingtian was relieved, but he didn't dare to be careless. He had seen the situation in Xianyang City with his own eyes. If something like that happened again, the Niu clan would be finished. Glancing at Liao Shi, he respectfully said, Please wait for a moment, His Excellency and sect leader Qin. I will bring her over immediately. He turned and left. After a few breaths, he came back with another person. It was Qin Chi. Brother. Her eyes widened, and her face was full of joy. Qin Yu smiled and pulled her over. Come here. Brother will introduce you. This is Sister Liao Shi. She is my good friend. Liao Shi rolled her eyes at him. Don't listen to your brother. I almost became your sister-in-law. He was timid and missed the opportunity. Now he regrets it. Qin Chi-Chi's eyes widened. This was the first time she saw a woman being so presumptuous in front of her brother. Qin Yu smiled bitterly and touched his nose. His attitude made Qin Chi-Chi's eyes brighter. Hello, Sister Liao Shi. She bowed respectfully. Liao Shi nodded with a smile. Good girl. You have a sweet mouth. Here, have some candy. She took out a piece of candy. Qin Yu's expression changed slightly. Before he could speak, Liao Shi stopped it with a look. Open your mouth. Qin Chi ate it with a smile. It's sweet. In the blink of an eye, his attitude toward Liao Shi became much more intimate. The two of them leaned together and began chatting nonstop. Qin Yu was silent. Niu Dingtian was surprised. He thought for a moment and said, Lord Qin, I will go back first. Come and find me before you leave. He cupped his hands and left. Qin Chi was asleep. She was lying on the grass, her face peaceful. In her body, the hidden danger of her life force being cut off had already disappeared. Qin Yu said in a low voice, You shouldn't. Liao Shi glared at him. Shut up. Why shouldn't I? I can stay for half a day at most, but I can save Chi from suffering. How can you be such a brother? Qin Yu smiled bitterly. I never thought, I know. Liao Shi interrupted him and rolled her eyes. Do you think I'm so easy to fool? Qin Yu was silent. How much longer? Liao Shi said, not long. Silence fell. A gentle breeze blew through the green grass. But in this tranquility, there was an indescribable sadness and silence. Can't you go? Qin Yu finally broke the silence. Liao Shi sighed. I have no choice. I am not the protagonist, so I can only be a supporting character. She turned sideways and looked at Qin Yu. To be honest, if I leave this time, I really won't be coming back. Do you miss me? Qin Yu said nothing. Liao Shi sighed. I am so sad. You are such a heartless man. She raised her hand and touched Qin Yu's face. You are really leaving? Are you sure you don't want to see me again? Qin Yu turned around and hugged her. That's right. Liao Shi snuggled against his chest, found a comfortable position, and closed her eyes with a smile. Her entire person quickly became illusory, just like when she was in the abyss back then. She quickly faded away like a shadow. Qin Yu tried hard, but he couldn't hold back his tears. They fell on Liao Shi's face. Her long eyelashes trembled, and she slowly opened her eyes. Don't cry. Remember, I am her. We will meet again. She disappeared. At this moment, Qin Yu felt endless loneliness. Liao Shi had come, and she had left. It was a hurried reunion and parting. We will meet again. We will meet again. Qin Yu took a deep breath. He wiped the corners of his eyes and said, Bai Fei Fei. Shua. Her figure appeared, and she respectfully bowed. My lord. Qin Yu flipped his hand and took out the eternal heart. Before you refine it, I have a few questions I want to ask. He lifted a hand and placed a finger on the eternal heart. Wake up. The golden lines on its surface began to shine. Motes of gold flowed within. After a moment of silence, a dissatisfied voice sounded out. Qin Yu, you are so annoying. I already handed me over to you. Just let her fuse with me. Why did you have to wake me up? She indignantly said. Do you know how cruel your actions are? You're making me make the decision to kill myself for the second time. Do you really think I won't change my mind? Qin Yu said, You can change your mind. The eternal heart paused. It became even more indignant. I won't. Hurry up and do it. What are you blabbering about? Bai Fei Fei's eyes widened. She looked at Qin Yu and then at the eternal heart in his hand, disbelief on her face. If she wasn't certain, then this eternal heart in front of her was indeed real. Bai Fei Fei suspected that Qin Yu had made a fake one. Why was he so cooperative? He didn't struggle at all. This didn't make sense. Qin Yu said, Answer a question of mine. Otherwise, I guarantee that Bai Fei Fei will not fuse with you. The eternal heart shouted, You are going too far. You dare threaten me? Thump, thump. It violently throbbed, releasing a powerful aura. Qin Yu was expressionless. You can try. After a brief silence, the eternal heart clenched her teeth. You are ruthless. Ask away. Qin Yu said, Why are you so cooperative? I have lived long enough. I can't die even if I want to. Answer my question seriously, otherwise I will throw you back to Xianyang. Emperor Qin will be happy to have you back. The eternal heart. Surname Qin, listen well to me. The answer is no answer. I don't know why either. When we first met, I wished I could strangle you to death. But when I heard your name, I felt that I deserved to be captured by you. Resisting was wrong. Are you satisfied with this answer? Qin Yu frowned. To others, this might be an extremely preposterous and unbelievable answer. But at this moment, Qin Yu recalled what the Azure Dragon Spirit had said to him in Starseed Grotto Heaven. It had always been waiting for Qin Yu's arrival. Thus, when he arrived, the Azure Dragon Spirit directly fused into Qin Yu's body and helped to become a new world destiny spirit. There was no way to explain it, but this was the truth. It was also one of the important reasons why Qin Yu doubted his own identity. It was likely that the eternal heart in front of him was in a similar situation. You have always been waiting for someone to arrive, and I am that person. The eternal heart fell silent. But sometimes, silence itself was the answer. Qin Yu let go. Bai Fei Fei, it's yours. Bai Fei Fei didn't quite understand the conversation between Qin Yu and the eternal heart, but that wasn't important. Right now, there was only the eternal heart in front of her. Once the two fused, her strength would soar. The Battle of Xianyang had made Bai Feifei realize just how weak she was. It was far too dangerous to stay by Qin Yu's side. If she wasn't careful, something could happen. Previously, she had thought that the long-lived species were immortal. But the giant beast's corpse had been right there, and she had even passed through it for a period of time. Perhaps this was the so-called eternal life of the long-lived species. But reality proved that this iron law could be broken. Bai Feifei didn't want to die. Therefore, she couldn't wait to make herself stronger. "Thank you, Your Excellency." She reached out and took the eternal heart. Taking a deep breath, Bai Feifei slowly pressed it against her chest. His 5 fingers landed on the towering peaks, drawing out an astonishing arc. His skin was white and seductive. Just like that, the eternal heart fused into her body without the slightest accident. Boom! A powerful aura broke out from her body. Qin Yu's thoughts stirred. The mountain and river sword flew out, instantly sealing off the surrounding area and blocking Bai Feifei's aura. Although he hadn't seen the result of the battle between Liao Shi and Qin Shi Huang, Liao Shi's disappearance was enough to explain everything. Right now, Qin Shi Huang would definitely want to find him and kill him. Qin Yu wouldn't give him this chance. He wanted to live. Only by living would he be able to reunite with Liao Shi in the future. I am her, then who is she? Qin Yu thought of Misty. He also thought of His Excellency, the 2 most powerful women by his side. The little blue lamp might know something, but unfortunately, that fellow's lips were tightly sealed and he had never revealed anything. And now, he was playing dead and lying on the ground like a corpse. The chances of obtaining an answer from him were close to 0. Qin Yu took a deep breath and suppressed these thoughts. In front of him, Bai Feifei had changed. Her dress became more exquisite and her skin whiter. She gave off a flawless feeling. The only flaw was that her dress was even smaller and the exposed parts were even bolder. She was crazily testing the edges of her spectacular exposure. Shua. She opened her eyes, a happy look on her face. She respectfully bowed. "Thank you, my lord." The eternal heart smoothly fused together. Bai Feifei was well aware that all of this was because of Qin Yu. If it were just her, wanting to fuse with the eternal heart wouldn't have been simple. In fact, she might have even faced great dangers. It had to be known that after the broken body of a long-lived species was suppressed for too long, each piece would give birth to its own will. And the eternal heart was undoubtedly the most powerful of them all, bar none. Even though Bai Feifei had fused with her own heart, she still didn't have the slightest confidence she could compete with the eternal heart. But now she had succeeded. With 2 hearts in hand and the rest missing, there was no way for her to compete with her for dominance. This was the reason why she was so happy and respectful. Qin Yu said, "Congratulations." Bai Feifei said, "It was my lord who helped me." Qin Yu nodded. "You stay here and look after Chi-Chi. I will be back soon." He stepped forwards and arrived at Heavenly Bull City. This was definitely a key surveillance location of the Qin Empire. But as long as Qin Shi Huang didn't personally come, no one would be able to discover him. But since he had promised to not cause trouble for the Niu family, Qin Yu only appeared for a moment and then turned to leave. Soon, Niu Dingtian chased after him and cupped his hands. "Thank you, Sect Master Qin." Qin Yu said, "I should thank Senior Niu for helping me take care of Chi-Chi." Niu Dingtian shook his head. As long as her identity isn't exposed, she can stay in the Niu family. He flicked his sleeves and sealed off a part of the world. "Sect Master Qin, I invited you here today because I have something to show you." He took out a jade slip. Countless lines lit up on its surface like layers of a large net, sealing the jade slip within. But even so, the jade slip was still trembling, and with each tremble, a crack appeared on its surface. The cracks were subtle and dense. Looking at the situation, even with the seal, there was no way to keep the jade slip for too long. Qin Yu took the jade slip and looked at it. Niu Dingtian said, "This is a recording of the battle that happened in Xianyang City not long ago. I think you should have a look." Qin Yu probed it with his divine sense. After a moment, there was a cracking sound, and the jade slip shattered. The mountain and river sword appeared and slashed down. The sword edge cut through the space, directly smashing an invisible aura. Niu Dingtian's complexion changed. Qin Yu put away his sword and cupped his hands together. Thank you, Senior Niu. The contents of the jade slip are very helpful to me. Don't worry, I have broken the connection between auras. Emperor Qin won't notice. Niu Dingtian bitterly smiled. That's good. Emperor Qin, the Niu family couldn't be provoked. He hesitated and said, That lord. Qin Yu said, He's gone. Niu Dingtian nodded. He didn't think too much about it. After all, such a powerful existence couldn't stay in this world for long. Sect Master Qin, you must be careful. Emperor Qin has put a bounty on the world, and everyone is looking for you. Qin Yu lightly said, Then let them come. Chapter 1804. Qin Chi woke up. When she opened her eyes, she saw Qin Yu standing not too far away. Brother. Qin Yu turned and smiled. Qin Chi looked around. Where is big sister Liao Shi? Qin Yu said. She went home. Qin Chi's eyes widened. Big sister Liao Shi left? Why? I haven't even talked to her yet. She patted her head. I'm so useless. Why did I fall asleep? Qin Yu smiled. It's fine. We will meet again. He reached out and rubbed Qin Chi's head. Your big sister Liao Shi has already cured you. You can live in peace. There won't be any problems. Qin Chi was pleasantly surprised. Qin Yu said, I still have things to do. You have to stay in the Ox family. I told Senior Ox that as long as you don't expose yourself, there won't be any problems. Qin Chi was reluctant. Brother, all right, I will come to see you in the future. Be a good girl. Qin Yu smiled and left. Shua, his figure vanished from sight. Niu Dingtian appeared. Chi, come back with me. Qin Chi was worried. Senior Ox, will my brother be fine? Niu Dingtian was silent for a moment. He shook his head. I can't guarantee anything. But Chi, don't worry. Qin Yu is someone who can give people pleasant surprises. Since he made a move, he must be confident. Qin Chi nodded. My brother will be fine. At this time, Qin Yu appeared beside true sovereign Xiongji, who was hiding underground to heal. Who? He turned his head. Seeing Qin Yu, he was happy. Sect Master Qin, you are fine. Qin Yu said, Xiongji, I want you to return to the 13th tower now. Tell the Tower Master that I have a generous gift for him. I hope the Tower Master will consider it. True Sovereign Xiongji blinked. That's it. Qin Yu said, just say it. The Tower Master will understand. True Sovereign Xiongji nodded. All right, then I will leave. He cupped his hands and left. Qin Yu glanced at the cave, where True Sovereign Xiongji was healing. He sat down cross-legged and recalled the contents of the jade slip. Above Xianyang, the Qin Emperor and Liao Shi were engaged in a fierce battle. Behind him, the great Tao to the heavens appeared, but his great Tao was different from that of ordinary people. Blazing flames burned on its surface, and Qin Yu wasn't unfamiliar with these flames. The fire of the divine kingdom. Or to be more precise, this was the burning power of faith. The great path of a cultivator could actually merge with the power of faith. Could this be the reason why the Qin Emperor was so powerful? At this moment, Qin Yu suddenly came to a realization. The reason why Liao Shi had suddenly awakened and left was probably because he hoped that Qin Yu would be able to see this clearly through the Battle of Xianyang City. The power of faith and the great Tao. Qin Yu tapped his fingers, a thoughtful look on his face. Bai Fei, my lord. After fusing with the heart of eternity, she was no different from an ordinary person. Now, she respectfully bowed, her white body flickering. Qin Yu was used to this. How much do you know about the divine kingdom? Bai Fei shook her head. My lord, I've never walked the path of a divine kingdom, so I don't know the specifics. However, a divine kingdom is more like a domain that allows the master of a divine kingdom to erupt with even greater power. These are the most basic questions. Qin Yu didn't obtain an answer. He thought for a moment and said, let's go investigate this matter. Jade Gate Pass. The fisherman let out a long sigh, a helpless look on his face. His days were becoming more and more difficult. He was thinking about whether or not he should find another place to take refuge. But he still had to face what he had to face today. Schwa. He walked out from the space shaking. He cupped his hands together and bowed. Sect Master Qin, I am surprised that you appeared here. Qin, you had a calm expression. Fisherman, would you betray my sect? The fisherman forced a smile. To tell the truth, if it weren't for the fact that the Qin Emperor has long since decided to kill my ancient remnant bloodline, I really might be tempted. Qin, you said, I advise you not to be tempted. The fisherman nodded. Sect Master Qin's strength is indeed incomparably formidable. It leaves me in awe. Qin, you waved his hand. Enough. I didn't come here today to listen to your flattering words. I have something to ask you. Sect Master Qin, please speak. The ancient remnants have a long history and were once the rulers of the wasteland. How much do you know about the divine kingdom? Qin Yu's eyes were calm, and his tone was even calmer. You should know that I don't like others lying to me. You don't have to say anything, but you had best not speak nonsense. The corner of the fisherman's lips twitched. He thought, even if you say that, would I dare not say it in the current situation? He gritted his teeth and endured it. It's not just because of the master of Dongting. He was killed by Qin Yu, and it was also because of the strength and trump cards that Qin Yu had revealed in the Battle of Xianying. He might not be a match for Qin Huang, but apart from Qin Huang, in the entire desolate region, only the 13th floor could make him feel apprehensive. The ancient remnants could not be provoked. The divine kingdom is a cultivation path that absorbs the faith of believers. Or in an even more ancient way, it's called incense. The fisherman said in a low voice, by absorbing the incense and fusing it into one's own cultivation, one will be able to attain the great Tao of incense flames and open up a brand new world. Indeed, the ancient remnant had some gains here. Incense Flame Avenue. Qin Yu nodded. How do I absorb the Joss flames? The fisherman shook his head. I don't know. He hurriedly explained, Sect Master Qin, if the saints really knew the method to cultivate the incense flame avenue, do you think we would still be chased by the great Qin Empire and be reduced to this state? Although it was shameful to say this, without a doubt, this was the most powerful evidence. Qin Yu remained silent. The fisherman looked at Qin Yu. Sect Master Qin, do you plan on walking the incense flame avenue? Qin Yu looked at him, not speaking. The fisherman bitterly smiled. I have no intention of prying. I only wish to express my stance. If Sect Master Qin can smoothly step onto the incense flame avenue, then my clan will seriously consider your previous promise. If Qin Yu could smoothly step onto the incense flame avenue, that meant that he truly had the chance to overthrow the great Qin Empire and become invincible in the world. The ancient remnant were certainly willing to rely on him. Qin Yu said, then you can all wait. He paced back and forth several times. Now, I wish to borrow a path to leave the Central Desolate. Make arrangements. The fisherman nodded. All right. First time was unfamiliar. Second time was familiar. Moreover, he didn't dare to refuse. This time, the ancient remnant's path changed to a different location. This time, it was hidden beneath a stream. Qin Yu stepped out. The water instantly parted, revealing the hidden entrance. It fiercely expanded, releasing a suction force that pulled Qin Yu inside. Schwa, his figure vanished from sight. The fisherman revealed a look of hesitation. His eyes were cloudy and uncertain, but in the end, he let out a deep sigh and suppressed the restlessness in his heart. In the Battle of Xianyang City, Qin Yu had faced Emperor Qin and was able to escape unscathed. Who knew what other cards he had in his hands? Only the fisherman knew of today's events. Once something happened to Qin Yu, he would surely think of him. At that time, if Qin Yu didn't die, the one to die would likely be him. Qin Yu passed through the channel once more. He stepped into a snowy region of ice and snow. Strong winds howled and snow swirled about. His mind stirred, and he soon determined that the place he had arrived at this time was the desolate north. Moreover, this was a bitter and cold land of the extreme north. It was sealed in ice for 10,000 miles, and it was difficult to find any chance of survival. But at this moment, he heard the sounds of fighting. There was a loud rumbling sound as icebergs shattered and fell to the ground, causing countless cracks to appear on the ground. Xinyu looked up. The two sides were humans and barbarians, and the one being chased was a barbarian tribe that lived here. Brothers, destroy this barbarian tribe, and we will go back to receive our reward. A general riding a strange beast roared and laughed. He lifted his hand, and an ice spear automatically appeared. He threw it out. With a shrill sound, the ice spear stabbed towards a group of barbarians. Their eyes were filled with despair. Bang! With a dull sound, the ice spear exploded into pieces. The general's expression changed. Oh, he only had time to utter a single word before his body exploded with a loud bang. With the general killed, the morale of the desolate North Army collapsed. The encirclement soon stopped, and they hurriedly retreated. The barbarians that were saved from the ice spear still had looks of surprise on their faces. Suddenly, they knelt on the ground. Thank you for your help. The Ice and Rock tribe will forever be grateful. Qin Yu's mind stirred. At this moment, he could actually feel traces of Joss flames. It was very little. With his current cultivation, it was almost negligible. But they really did exist. Could it be? Qin Yu's eyes flashed. He turned and left. After leaving the central desolate north, he didn't need to worry about being discovered by Qin Huang again. The true Emperor realm could be reached with just a thought. Western desolate, towering holy mountain, land covered in snow. Outside the Black Temple, white snow suddenly shook and splashed everywhere. Qin Yu stepped out. He looked up at the temple. At this moment, an intense thought suddenly appeared in his heart. This place was his domain. As long as he stayed here, he could do anything. The temple doors opened. An old barbarian on the white floor looked at him with excitement. He knelt on the ground and respectfully kowtowed. Meng Shan greets, Your Majesty, barbarian sovereign. You have come. Qin Yu entered the main hall. Great Shaman Meng Shan, we finally meet. Tears streamed down Meng Shan's face. He almost couldn't speak. Your Majesty, you have returned. Our barbarians have hope. Qin Yu said, I came back this time because I have a matter. I hope to receive guidance from Great Shaman Meng Shan. I wouldn't dare. Your Majesty, please ask. Great Shaman Meng Shan hurriedly said. Qin Yu said, How much do you know about the Divine Kingdom? Great Shaman Meng Shan's eyes brightened. He looked up. Your Majesty, you have truly formed a divine kingdom? Qin Yu didn't need to hide anything from him. As the sovereign of the barbarians, he would forever be inseparable from them. That's right. Good. That's great. Great Shaman Meng Shan was extremely excited. Your Majesty, with the divine kingdom in hand, you can step onto the Joss Flame Great Tao. You will also have the qualifications to contend with Sovereign Qin. Qin Yu asked, How do I cultivate the Joss Flame Great Tao? Great Shaman Meng Shan reached out a hand. Your Majesty, please sit. Concerning the divine kingdom, my barbarian race only has a portion of incomplete records. Although it is clearly stated that stepping onto the Joss Flame Great Tao is the true, unsurpassed path, the cultivation method is not clear. He forced a smile. Otherwise, my barbarian race would have given birth to many amazing barbarian sovereigns over the countless years, and we wouldn't have been suppressed and hunted down by the desolate region. Qin Yu frowned. You don't know. Great Shaman Meng Shan said, Your Majesty, there is no need to worry. Although I don't know the method to cultivate the Joss Flame Great Tao, I do know someone who does. Who? Min Changjing. Qin Yu revealed a look of surprise. It's him. Great Shaman Meng Shan said, Your Majesty, do not underestimate this person. Sovereign Qin's combat strength is indeed unparalleled and invincible under the heavens, but he might not be able to kill Min Changjing. This person has hidden himself deeply, and even now, no one knows just how unfathomable he is. Qin Yu rubbed his chin. He actually believed these word a little. This was because when little Meaty faced Min Changjing, although she had used incomparably strong threats and temptations, she had always felt a trace of dread. This was something he had experienced before. As for little Meaty, Qin Yu could no longer determine her current identity. But there was one thing without a doubt. she was strong. A long-lived species and the eternal realm were no longer enough to describe her existence. It was likely that her existence involved Qin Yu's greatest secrets. That was who he was and where he came from. Thus, Min Changjing's strength was within his expectations. Qin Yu said, "Then I will go look for Min Changjing." Great Shaman Meng Shan said, "Your Majesty, when you are with the barbarians, you must refer to yourself as this." Qin Yu's eyebrows shot up. It is not just a title, but also an identity. If you do not have a proper name, then you cannot speak properly. Great Shaman Meng Shan said, "First, you must acknowledge yourself as the sovereign of the barbarians. Only then can you obtain the support of the barbarians. Although the barbarians do not know the cultivation methods of the divine kingdom, all of the barbarians in this world are without a doubt your subjects. They will provide you with an unending stream of Joss flames to help you become stronger." Qin Yu nodded. "I understand." Bang! At this time, in the distant divine kingdom, and even in the other great Qin, changes suddenly occurred. Those living in the divine kingdom might not have sensed this change, but to Qin Yu, it was a heaven-shaking and earth-shaking event. He could feel the endless power of Joss flames instantly connecting with the divine kingdom. And this power of Joss flames came from all over the desolate domain, from all the barbarians in the world. Rumble, rumble. Qin Yu's divine kingdom began to expand. He closed his eyes, sensing all of this with rapt attention. Shua, vast Yangzwell appeared. His eyes widened as he looked at the scene in front of him, a look of shock on his face. Qin Yu had become even stronger. In the other great Qin, Taoist cloudy mist looked up into the skies. As an existence that had witnessed the birth of the great Qin Empire until today, he could vaguely sense some vague changes. It was as if their world had become more real and stable in this moment. Cough, cough, cough. There was a violent coughing fit. Chun Shi, who was standing guard at the side, hurriedly supported him. "Honorable Master, go back and rest." His face was full of worry. After autumn this year, his honorable master's corpse had suddenly deteriorated. Now, he had the appearance of a withered mortal old man. But as the most powerful cultivator in the world, how could he look like a mortal? This in itself was a sad omen. Taoist cloudy mist smiled. "Don't be sad. People will die eventually. For me to be able to live until today is already a blessing from the heavens. I have no regrets." Now, he was waiting for Qin Yu to return. He had once said that before he died, he would take him to see the true world. He didn't know whether or not he would be able to see her in that world. There was nothing else involved. Taoist cloudy mist simply wanted to kneel in front of her and look at her face once more. That was enough to satisfy him. In the snow mountain black temple, Qin Yu opened his eyes. He cupped his hands together and said, "Thank you, great shaman." Great shaman of Meng Mountain smiled. "Your Majesty, you are the sovereign of the barbarians. All of the barbarians crawl at your feet and are willing to pay anything for you. So, there is no need for your Majesty to thank me. To be able to help you is my greatest wish and honor." Qin Yu nodded. "I will go see Min Changjing now. Farewell, your Majesty." Chapter 1805. Thousand Island Lake, Long Island. On a large ship, Min Changjing sat on the side, fishing with a fishing rod. There was a large umbrella over his head. He took a sip from the teapot and let out a comfortable sigh. This peaceful and stable life was really not bad. The old chef was cooking fish and the fragrance wafted over. Beside him, a girl with a long braid was making pancakes. These pancakes weren't ordinary. When they were soaked in fish soup, they tasted delicious. "Master, the meal is ready. Please wash your hands first." Min Changjing smiled. "All right, let's eat first." Just as he stood up, he couldn't help but frown. The old chef, who was holding the fish soup with a smile, suddenly looked up, his eyes bursting with bright light. Above the lake, space twisted. Qin Yu stepped out and cupped his hands together. "Master Min, it's been a long time." "Qin Yu," Min Changjing exclaimed softly and quickly looked around. Qin Yu said, I'm alone today. Master Min, there is no need to worry. Min Chongjing relaxed, but his complexion was still ugly. Sect Master Qin, why did you suddenly come? In the current desolate region, who didn't know that Qin Yu was a great trouble? What good would it do to be with him? Emperor Qin wasn't easy to fool. As for selling Qin Yu, forget it. Master Min didn't want to die. He couldn't afford to offend that little grandaunt. Qin Yu smiled. What a fragrant fish soup. It's better to be on time than early. Master Min, are you not going to invite me to a meal? Min Chongjing frowned. Sect Master Qin, let's not beat around the bush. Are you sure you still have the mood to sit down and eat with me? Qin Yu nodded. Of course. No matter what happens, we still have to eat. Old chef quickly said, Master, I made a lot of fish soup. Have a girl make more pancakes. It'll be enough. Min Chongjing humphed. Sect Master Qin, please. He sat down at the table. The fish soup was served along with several pancakes. Qin Yu directly ate. The taste was really good. He quickly finished 2 pancakes and smiled. Your cooking is really good. Old chef nodded and bowed. He pulled the maid beside him. Thank you for the praise, Sect Master Qin. Qin Yu smiled and said, Lord Min, the reason I took the liberty to come here today is because there is something I hope I can help you with. Min Chongjing said, This old man is like a wild crane. I've long stopped meddling in worldly affairs. Moreover, if Sect Master Qin can't solve the problem, then this old man is even more helpless. Qin Yu looked at him. Lord Min, are you saying that you won't give me a chance to speak? Min Chongjing's expression froze for a moment before he revealed a smile. Sect Master Qin has misunderstood. I just wanted to say this in advance so that the higher the expectations, the greater the disappointment. Qin Yu laid down his chopsticks. That won't be the case. Before I came here, I was already sure that Lord Min would be able to help me in this matter. He said in a soft voice, May I ask, Lord Min, after establishing the Divine Kingdom, how will I step onto the Joss Flame Great Road? Min Chongjing was confused. What? Qin Yu repeated the question. Min Chongjing shook his head repeatedly. I know about God Kingdoms, but I've never heard of Joss Flame Dao. Sovereign Qin, you found the wrong person. Qin Yu looked at him without saying a word. Min Chongjing swore an oath. I guarantee that there is no falsehood in my words. Qin Yu said, Lord Min lives in Thousand Island Lake, but you shouldn't be unfamiliar with the situation in the Central Desolate. Min Chongjing didn't understand what he meant. I do understand a bit, Qin Yu said. Then Lord Min should be well aware of my current situation. Emperor Qin has placed a bounty on the entire world, vowing to capture me. If I cannot step onto the Joss Flame Great Road, then I have no chance of winning against Emperor Qin. Even if I'm fine now, it is only a matter of time before something happens. What nonsense! To be enemies with Emperor Qin. If you weren't unlucky, then who would be? Min Chongjing coughed. Cough. Sect Master Qin is powerful, and in the war of Xianying City, your methods were even more. Before he finished speaking, he was interrupted by Qin Yu. Lord Min, you only have one son. Min Chongjing's complexion darkened. He clenched his teeth. Again, in the past, little Meaty had threatened him like this. Qin Yu had learned it from her, right? His eyes were icy cold. What does Sect Master Qin mean? Nothing. I just want to remind Lord Min that when one's life is threatened and they want to live on, it is likely they will make some decisions that don't conform to their hearts. I must first apologize to Lord Min in advance. After all, if I don't hold back and kill your son, then Lord Min will have no descendants. Qin Yu used a calm tone to speak the most threatening words possible. He drew his sword in front of Min Chongjing. If you don't help me, I will kill your son. Min Chongjing shivered with anger. Then he laughed. Sect Master Qin, what big words you have there. Do you really think that you can do whatever you want in this world? He leaned forward, his eyes even colder. Just as Sect Master Qin said, don't forget that Emperor Qin is currently pursuing you with all his strength. I don't dare to say that I can suppress Sect Master Qin, but it shouldn't be difficult to delay you for a moment. Qin Yu picked up a teacup and slowly drank. Lord Min can try. But as long as I don't die today, I guarantee that my family will have no descendants. Great! On the boat on the lake, the air nearly froze. Bang! Min Chongjing slammed the table. You have gone too far. You have gone too far. He fiercely stood up and clenched his teeth. All of you leave. I will meet with Sect Master Qin. The old chef quickly grabbed his daughter and punched away the mist. The mist rose up into the air and turned into a white cloud that carried everyone on the boat away. In the blink of an eye, there were only 2 people left. Min Chongjing glared at Qin Yu. Qin Yu's expression was calm. Surnamed Qin, this is the last time. If you dare to use my son to threaten me again, I will fight you to the death. He used the fiercest tone to admit defeat. He only had a single son, so he didn't dare to gamble with him. And Qin Yu was clearly not easy to kill. Qin Yu smiled. Thank you, Lord Min. Min Chongjing coldly snorted. He lifted a hand, and everything within 100 miles froze. All rules fell into stillness, without the slightest ripple. Qin Yu's eyes brightened. With just this move, he could see how strong Min Chongjing was. Although he was a true sovereign, his true sovereign realm was definitely not ordinary. Enough nonsense. The key to cultivating the Joss Flame Great Tao lies in the Joss Flame spirit. If you want to step into it, you must refine a spirit body that can replace yourself and integrate into the divine kingdom, absorbing the Joss flames of the believers. Min Chongjing said, but I must remind you that a Joss flame spirit is extremely difficult to refine. It must be of the same origin as yourself and must also have its own will. And most importantly, it must completely obey you, otherwise it will suffer a backlash from the Joss flames. He looked at Qin Yu and sneered. Although I know how to cultivate the Joss Flame Great Tao, I have never been able to take this step in countless years because I cannot refine a Joss Flame spirit. Qin Yu, if you want to step into the Joss Flame Great Tao and resist Emperor Qin in a short period of time, that is nearly impossible. Qin Yu frowned. Joss Flame spirit. His eyes flashed. You mean to say that I must refine an existence similar to an avatar? Min Chongjing remained expressionless. Of course it isn't that simple. Otherwise, how could a mere avatar stop me? The most important aspect of a Joss Flame spirit is its own quality. It must be powerful to the extreme in order to carry the Joss flames of the divine kingdom. I can only say that I have spent many years, but have never been able to find a Joss Flame spirit that is strong enough to carry the Joss flames of the divine kingdom. Thus, I gave up on any thoughts of stepping onto the Joss Flame Great Tao. Qin Yu stood up. He cupped his hands together and said, I understand. Farewell. He took a step back and vanished from sight. Min Chongjing. He blinked, a blank look on his face. Although the answer he gave was true, was he really going to send Qin Yu away, just like that? Qin Yu had even threatened him to his face and shed all pretense of cordiality. So how could he possibly give up so easily? Could it be that he could find a suitable Joss Flame spirit? Min Chongjing was shaken. He quickly shook his head. No way. Something like a Joss Flame spirit cannot be found anywhere in the world. So how could Qin Yu have one? Humph humph. I think he doesn't know how difficult it is to refine a Joss Flame spirit. Once he fails several times, he will experience the pain of not being able to step onto the Great Tao. Leaving Chongdao, leaving the Thousand Island Lake. Qin Yu appeared, a thoughtful look on his face. Joss Flame spirit. As Min Chongjing said, this was the key to stepping onto the Great Tao of Joss Flames. As for the various requirements for a Joss Flame spirit, Qin Yu thought about it again and again. He already had a suitable candidate. They came from the same root. They had their own consciousness. They were completely obedient. Moreover, they needed to be of a high enough quality to carry the Joss flames of the divine kingdom. This last point was the least of his worries. Qin Yu's lips curved up in a smile. Shua. He took a step forward. In the next moment, Qin Yu appeared once more. He had arrived at the heaven-pulling sect. In a chamber, Qin Yu was in seclusion. His complexion suddenly changed, a look of struggle and hesitation in his eyes. But soon, this struggle and hesitation vanished from sight. He stood up and left. Soon, he arrived at the heaven-pulling sect. In a secluded area, he bowed and said, Qin Yu greets Master. Qin Yu turned and lightly said, I came here today to take you away. Qin Yu respectfully said, yes. Facing Qin Yu, he simply didn't have the strength to resist. In particular, after Qin Yu broke into the true sovereign realm, he had already accepted his fate. Qin Yu flicked his sleeves. The phantoms of Nank stone and yellow grain would appeared, shaking as they formed a vortex. He took a step inside. Qin Yu clenched his teeth and followed. In the next moment, his expression changed drastically, and he stared fixedly below. This was another great Qin imperial capital, Xianyang. This place is, Qin Yu lightly said, my sect's divine kingdom. Qin Yu's body trembled. Master, you had me come here for, Qin Yu said, incarnate as the Joss flame spirit. I will carry the Joss flames of the divine kingdom on behalf of my sect, and help me establish the Joss flame great Tao. He turned to look at Qin Yu. Qin Yu, are you willing? Qin Yu felt a bitter taste in his mouth. Only a grandson would be willing. Once he transformed into a Joss flame spirit and fused together with the divine kingdom, he would truly be under his control. His life or death would only be a thought away. Qin Yu frowned. Qin Yu's heart skipped a beat, and he hurriedly replied, I'm willing. Very good. Qin Yu revealed a satisfied expression. His thoughts stirred. In Xianyang City, the guardian divine beast of the country, the phoenix, suddenly spread its wings and soared into the sky. In an instant, it soared into the sky. Ah, look, it's a phoenix. My great Qin's guardian divine beast has awakened. There must be some great event. It flew into the sky. Countless people revealed looks of awe. Some even knelt on the ground, kowtowing again and again, praying that they could obtain the protection of the guardian divine beast. And at this time, the great Qin's guardian divine beast was in front of Qin Yu, sobbing and sniffling, incomparably sorrowful. Its rough meaning was that this place was too boring and it couldn't do anything. Of course, on the surface, it had another meaning. For example, it couldn't bear to part with its master and hoped to follow by his side. Its true face was seen through by Qin Yu. He kicked it to the ground. Shut up. The chicken overlord wiped its tears, a pitiful expression on its face. Qin Yu lifted a hand and pointed. His name is Qin Yu. Starting from today, he will be the Joss flame spirit. He will carry the incense of the entire divine kingdom. Help him complete his transformation. The chicken overlord sniffled. Joss flame spirit? It looked at Qin Yu. Master, what is that? How do I transform? Qin Yu. He suddenly discovered that he had thought things too simply. He had found the Joss flame spirit. But how could he carry the incense of the divine kingdom? The man and the chicken looked at each other in dismay. Qin Yu rubbed his chin. I will leave this matter to you. The chicken overlord's eyes widened. But as it looked at Qin Yu's expression, it didn't dare to say anything. It thought for a moment and said, How about I dig a hole and bury him in it? Perhaps there will be a reaction from the divine kingdom. Or I can turn him into a statue and have him stand beside me. If I have nothing to do, he can chat with me. Yes, that's good. The corners of Qin Yu's lips twitched. In particular, it saw that Qin Yu actually wanted to give it a try. It hurriedly said, Master, there is no need to go to such trouble. I know what to do. Qin Yu's eyes brightened. Qin Yu took a step forwards. His entire body began to shine. Then, in the increasingly rich light, he gradually turned illusory. Shua, he completely vanished from sight. Qin Yu was gone. But at this moment, Qin Yu could clearly feel his existence. Rumble, rumble. Above Xianyang City, the vast and mighty destiny of the nation began to gather. As it gathered into a single point, it began to emit a faint layer of gold. A golden phantom appeared in front of Qin Yu. It bowed, Master. This was Qin Yu. Without a doubt, he had completed his transformation and become the Joss flame spirit of the divine kingdom. Very good. Qin Yu smiled. Qin Yu, I will leave the important task of helping me open up the Joss flame great Tao to you. This most critical step had been smoothly accomplished. Qin Yu said, I will do my best to help Master reach the Tao. But Creating the Joss Flame Great Tao is not something that can be accomplished overnight. Moreover, the most important thing is that Master needs to collect more Joss Flames. The more you collect, the faster you can speed up this process. Qingyu nodded. Leave these matters to me. Qingyu bowed. His golden figure vanished, fusing into the divine kingdom. Qingyu closed his eyes. Bang! Behind him, the phantom of the great Tao appeared. It twisted and turned, reaching into the heavens. And now, specks of light were appearing on this grand path. The power of Joss Flames. Shua. Qingyu opened his eyes, a sharp light surging within them. He had succeeded. However, his Joss Flame Great Tao had just been opened. It was far from being able to compare with the blazing divine kingdom flames on Emperor Qin's Great Tao. But at the very least, in terms of boundary, the two were now on the same level. In other words, as long as he collected enough Joss Flames, catching up to Emperor Qin's boundary was only a matter of time. And the power of Joss Flames. Qin, didn't lack them. Emperor Qin controlled the Great Qin Empire and had trillions of citizens. But besides the divine kingdom in front of him, Qin had another identity. He was the Goliath sovereign, and all the Goliaths in the world were his believers. As long as this identity was officially confirmed by the surrounding Goliath tribes, he could obtain a massive amount of Joss Flames. The chicken overlord's eyes widened. Qin was still Qin, but the feeling he gave off at this moment had become unfathomably deep, even more terrifying. Congratulations, Master. Congratulations, Master. From now on, when you step onto the Joss Flame Great Tao, your supernatural powers will be limitless. Flattery and flattery flooded out like a tide. Qin glanced at it. Help me keep an eye on Qin. The chicken overlord quickly nodded. Master, rest assured. Shua. Qin vanished. He appeared in the Great Qin Imperial Palace. The door to the hall opened silently, and an intense cough entered Zhang Xian's ears. He stepped in and looked at the withered Taoist cloudy mist sitting on a prayer mat. Today, I will bring you to see the outside world. Thank you, my lord. Taoist cloudy mist smiled, his eyes bright. Chapter 1806. The once young Chun, she was now a tall and straight young man. He fell to his knees. Honorable Master. Tears tumbled down. Taoist cloudy mist turned around, a smile on his face. Silly child, I already told you that I have no regrets living to this day. Why can't you think it through? From today onwards, you are the new imperial scholar of the Great Qin Empire. You must do your best to assist His Majesty and continue the Great Qin Empire for 10,000 years to come. Chun Shi kowtowed. Yes. His voice choked with sobs. Taoist cloudy mist bowed. My lord, let's go. Qin nodded. All right. He flicked his sleeves, and an invisible strength wrapped around Taoist cloudy mist. With a single step, the two of them arrived at the edge of this world. If they continued forwards, they would leave this place and enter the desolate domain. Qin turned. Cloudy mist, although your body has withered away, with your cultivation, if you wholeheartedly wish to extend your life, you can still last for a period of time. If you leave this world with me right now, you won't be able to come back. You'll soon die, and your Tao will disappear. So, I will ask you one last time. Have you thought this over? Taoist cloudy mist had a calm expression. There was no joy or sorrow in his eyes. My lord, before I die, I wish to see the outside world. Qin lifted a hand. The mountain and river sword appeared, and he slashed forward. The suppressive strength that blocked in front of Taoist cloudy mist instantly shattered. Shua. The two of them stepped out and appeared in the boundless sea of clouds. Below them were mountains and rivers, stretching as far as the eye could see. Qin said, This is the real world. Taoist cloudy mist's eyes widened and his lips trembled. His eyes were red, but a smile appeared on his face. He took a deep breath, feeling an unprecedented smoothness. He trembled as he cupped his hands together and respectfully bowed. Thank you, my lord. Qin looked at him. What other wishes do you have? Taoist cloudy mist didn't speak, but his eyes brightened. Qin was silent for a moment. He said, She is not in this world, but I will pass on your request today and let her know of this matter." Taoist Cloudy Mist smiled. "I'll have to trouble my lord." He straightened his body, looked at the vast world, and murmured, "So, there's more than one real world." As he spoke, Taoist Cloudy Mist body was like a shadow, rapidly fading under the sunlight, disappearing completely. He had died. In reality, it was impossible for Taoist Cloudy Mist to leave the illusory world and step into reality. It was Qin Yu who had helped him break through the suppression of the desolate domain, allowing him to temporarily appear in this world. But just as Qin Yu had said to Taoist Cloudy Mist before, if he were to step into the real world in his current state, he would have to withstand a rejection of the world and would soon die. The life of Cloudy Mist may be a legendary existence in the other Qin kingdom. He was incredibly powerful, and he was the #1 cultivator in the world. Moreover, he was Great Qin's imperial teacher, and he had the right to determine Great Qin's imperial successor. His life was bright and dazzling. But in Qin Yu's eyes, what was his life? Was this a dream? Then, in this life of mine, everything I've done now, is it just a dream in the eyes of others? Qin Yu took a deep breath. He slowly exhaled from his chest, a firm look in his eyes. His life was not a dream. Even if it was, he would still break out of this dream and slaughter his way to the heavens. He cupped his hands together and bowed towards where Taoist Cloudy Mist had vanished. When he stood up once more, his expression had returned to normal. "Bai Feifei, Shua," she appeared out of thin air. She bowed and said, "My lord." Qin Yu said, "Go to the 13th floor and deliver the giant beast corpse to the floor master. Say that this is a token of my sincerity to repay him for saving me." Bai Feifei hesitated. "My lord," Qin Yu said, "the floor master and my sect do indeed have their own thoughts, but I believe that the 13th floor and my sect have a common enemy. Emperor Qin is too strong. I need to find an opponent for him to share some of the pressure." Bai Feifei respectfully said, "I understand." Qin Yu said, "After you deliver the giant beast corpse, you may act freely. Do your best to find the remaining parts of its body as soon as possible and restore your full strength." He looked at her. "If there is an accident, or if there are difficulties that you cannot resolve, you may seek my help." Bai Feifei bowed. "My lord, please be careful." She turned and left. The complete giant beast corpse was more than enough to help the floor master resolve his own hidden dangers and increase his strength further. As for why Qin Yu was so sure that there was a problem with the floor master, the reason was simple. If there wasn't an accident, then with the floor master's strength and status, he would never take the risk of interfering in matters involving Bai Feifei. Heavenly retribution was not a joke. Even if Qin Yu stood in front of him, once he was implicated, he would die. Finding an opponent for Emperor Qin was only one of the reasons. At most, it would temporarily divert a portion of his attention. The true key lay in himself. Qin Yu had already taken the first step of the Joss Flame, Great Tao. But if he wanted to truly succeed, there was still a long road ahead. Luckily, he had found it. His direction was to collect the power of Joss Flames. The more the better. To Qin Yu, the fastest and most effective way to collect the power of Joss Flames was in the barbarians. As long as his identity as the barbarian sovereign was confirmed, then all the barbarians in the world would be his believers. This would be a source of Joss Flames no weaker than the Great Qin Empire. A sharp light flashed in Qin Yu's eyes. He stepped forwards and in the next moment appeared between the towering, snow-capped mountains of the Western Savage Holy Land. The doors of the Black Temple opened on their own. Besides the great shamans of Meng Mountain, there were also many barbarian cultivators. All of them had excited expressions. They knelt on the ground and kowtowed again and again. Henya was one of them. At this time, her eyes widened. Her excitement couldn't be concealed. Barbarian sovereign, the sovereign of my barbarian race. Henya finally understood why her honorable master had always treated Qin Yu differently, and why Qin Yu was able to repeatedly use miraculous methods within the borders of the barbarians. He was the barbarian sovereign. There was an explanation for all of this. The great shamans of Mang Mountain respectfully bowed. Your Majesty, the ascetic cultivation lineage is loyal to you. We will absolutely not reveal your identity. Please rest assured. Qin Yu's eyes swept over everyone. The reason I came here today is to tell you that I will officially return to the barbarians. The great shamans of Mang Mountain's eyes widened. Qin Yu said, "That's right. I will establish the orthodoxy and announce to the barbarians that their sovereign has been resurrected. And I will lead the barbarians to restore their former glory and become the masters of the desolate domain once more. Your Majesty." All the ascetic cultivators had tears streaming down their faces. They had waited for this day for countless years. Generation after generation of barbarians had died in pain and slaughter. They only hoped that in the future, their children would be able to live in this world without fear. The great shamans of Mang Mountain said, "Your Majesty, I am willing to go with you to the barbarian ancestral court to take back your authority and regain control of the barbarians of the world." Qin Yu nodded. "All right, we are willing to follow your Majesty and take back your authority." The ascetic cultivators shouted out loud. Qin Yu flicked his sleeves. "No need. I and the great shamans of Mang Mountain are enough. Scatter into the territory of the western barbarians and prepare for war." His eyes erupted with a sharp light. "The rise of my barbarian race must be accompanied by a great war." "Yes, your Majesty." The ascetic cultivators stood up, their eyes filled with determination. The barbarians never feared war. Now that His Majesty had returned, it was time to let the world know just how strong the barbarians were. The great shamans of Mang Mountain took a deep breath. "Your Majesty, please follow me." He bowed and led the way. Qin Yu entered the inner hall of the temple. The great shamans of Mang Mountain said, "Your Majesty, the throne of the barbarian sovereign has been vacant for a long time. The ancestral court is in charge, and the internal forces are very complicated." He wanted to say something, but hesitated. Qin Yu had a calm expression. "Does the great shamans of Mang Mountain want to tell me that it won't be easy to take back my authority?" The great shamans of Mang Mountain said, "Your Majesty's cultivation is exceedingly high, and you can even face Emperor Qin and escape unscathed. I am not worried that the ancestral court can resist your arrival. But the ancestral court is one of the foundations of the barbarians. Any unnecessary damage is a loss to the barbarians." The great shamans of Mang Mountain tried to speak gently. Qin Yu smiled. "Is the great shamans of Mang Mountain reminding me not to forget about Emperor Qin?" The great shamans of Mang Mountain forced a smile. "Your Majesty is wise." The facts were laid out in front of them. If the ancestral court wasn't willing to hand over its authority and a civil war broke out, it was likely that Emperor Qin would directly descend. Although Emperor Qin would lose the support of the Divine Kingdom after leaving the central desolate region, his strength would be greatly reduced. Even so, he was still an existence that had personally killed a long-lived species. Even if he only had half of his strength left, he would still be able to suppress and kill all true sovereigns. Even Qin Yu wasn't a match for Emperor Qin. The great shamans of Mang Mountain said. So, subduing the ancestral court and taking back its authority must be carefully considered. We cannot be too hasty. He hesitated for a moment and said, "Your Majesty, where is Miss Meaty at your side?" Qin Yu said, "Little Meaty is not by my side." His eyes flashed. "Great shaman of Mang Mountains, is there a problem with you suddenly mentioning Little Meaty?" The great shaman of Mang Mountains bowed and said, "I dare not hide anything from your Majesty. When you were in the Western Wasteland's imperial capital, I once risked my life and went there once. There I met that Miss Ro, and inadvertently learned from her that many years ago, she seemed to have signed a contract with a great shaman of the barbarians. And now, the one who controls the barbarian ancestral court is the descendant of that great shaman. Unfortunately, if Miss Ruru was here, she would be able to help your Majesty." Qin Yu's lips curved up. "Are you sure that's what Little Meaty said?" Grand Shaman of Mang Mountains nodded and repeated the conversation. "I remember it very clearly. There's no mistake." Qin Yu said, then there's nothing to worry about. Let's go straight to the ancestral court and complete our agreement to rescue the drifting fire tribe's great shaman. Your Majesty, Yu waved his hand. Little Meat has always considered the long term. She knows that I am the Goliath sovereign, and since I have some relationship with the Goliath ancestral court, she must have made preparations. Let's go over and play it by ear. I have enough confidence in Little Meat. This all right, but I ask that your Majesty be patient for the time being. If anything goes wrong, you can temporarily retreat and then slowly come up with a plan. These were the words of wisdom and experience. Yu nodded. Of course. Grand Shaman of Meng Mountains relaxed a little. He was truly worried that His Majesty, the Goliath Sovereign, would be angered and cause things to spiral out of control. Right now, this was the last hope of the barbarians. He couldn't stare on helplessly as the Goliath Sovereign fell into turmoil. Your Majesty, please wait a moment. I will immediately open the channel to enter the ancestral court. The barbarian ancestral court was the same as the 13th floor and Starseed Paradise. It was also a heavenly paradise world. It was because of this that they were able to avoid being hunted down by the various countries of the desolate region and just barely preserve their strength. Grand Shaman of Meng Mountains moved his hands and began to chant. Black lines began to appear on the pure white floor of the temple. They wove together, forming an incomparably complex pattern. As they trembled, they released motes of light. A portal appeared. It was simple and had an ancient aura. Your Majesty, if you pass through this portal, you can reach the ancestral court. Grand Shaman of Meng Mountains bowed. I will have to trouble you to temporarily hide your identity. Once the situation is clear, you can reveal your identity. Yu nodded. Your Majesty, please follow me. Grand Shaman of Meng Mountains stepped into the portal. There was a spatial distortion. The experience inside wasn't good. The dizzying feeling disappeared, and in front of them was a towering mountain. The vegetation was lush and green, releasing a vibrant vitality. One couldn't see the end of it. Who is it? With a shout, several barbarian guards appeared. Soon, their complexions changed, and they hurriedly bowed. Greetings, Grand Shaman of Meng Mountains. Grand Shaman of Meng Mountains nodded. I came to the ancestral court today for an important matter. Sent a message to all sides and immediately convened the ancestral court assembly. The guard said, Grand Shaman of Meng Mountains, today is the day of the Grand Judgment Assembly. All Grand Shamans have gathered. Grand Shaman of Meng Mountains' complexion changed. Judgment Assembly? This is bad. He hurriedly walked forward. Yu followed behind. As a follower of Grand Shaman of Meng Mountains, he naturally had the qualifications to enter the ancestral court. His expression was calm, but his eyes were constantly observing everything here. Suddenly, a ripple appeared in Yu's mind. A slightly smug voice directly sounded in his mind. Yu, when you hear this voice, you must have arrived at the barbarian ancestral court. Don't be afraid of anything. I've already helped you settle everything in advance. Don't worry and boldly move forward. Defeat them all and suppress them. It was meaty. Yu's lips curled into a smile. He had guessed that this must be the case. I wonder how she is now. I really want to go and see her. Just as Yu felt that this was all there was to say, Meaty's voice suddenly sounded again. Do you miss me? Umph. Do you think that it's better for me to stay by your side? Let me tell you, cherish my kindness to you. In the vast 13,000 worlds, who have I, Meaty, treated like this? So, when one day you figure out who you are, don't forget me. The voice completely disappeared. Yu frowned slightly. A thoughtful look appeared on his face. Meaty's last words clearly had a hidden meaning. Could it be that she knew something? But why did he forget Meaty? As Yu was thinking, the great shamans of Meng Mountain had already arrived outside the ancient palace built on the mountain peak. The aura was vast and boundless. This was the barbarian ancestral court, the place where the world had once been ruled. Today, all the great shamans of the ancestral court had gathered here. Because a trial was about to begin, the old barbarian knelt in the ancestral court. His breathing paused, his face pale, and his cultivation had been sealed. But he still raised his head. Even though he was kneeling on the ground, his eyes were still filled with mockery as he looked down at everyone. You were wrong. You were wrong. This will never change. Even if you kill me, I will still live on. But the barbarian ancestral court, the place that controls the fate of the entire barbarian race, is actually in the hands of people like you. I feel sorrow, and I feel that the countless men who died on the front lines of the barbarian race's battlefield are not worth it. You are not worthy of sitting in today's seats, and you are not qualified to be the rulers of the barbarian race. The old barbarian loudly cursed. In the ancestral court, the great shamans all had gloomy expressions, not only because they were being cursed, but also because the current barbarian ancestral court had indeed changed. But unfortunately, they could do nothing about it. Shut up. The Grand Wizard, who was wearing a gorgeous robe and holding a scepter in his hand, shouted at this moment. He raised his hand, and the scepter erupted with light, knocking the old barbarian to the ground. Great Shaman Earthfire has despised the ancestral court and wantonly slandered it. This is a great crime of disrespect. This will be combined with the crimes you have committed before. This crime cannot be forgiven. He stood up and raised his scepter. Today I, the black-robed Great Shaman, announce in the name of the ancestral court that Great Shaman Earthfire will be executed as a warning to others. Chapter 1807. I object. The Grand Shaman of Meng Mountain let out a deep roar, instantly attracting countless gazes. A commotion broke out in the ancestral court. Silence! The black-robed Grand Shaman shouted. He leaned forward, and his eyes were filled with oppression. Meng Shan, you were ordered to guard the western border. Who allowed you to return to the ancestral court? Oomph! The Grand Shaman of Meng Mountain sneered. I'm a Grand Shaman of the Shaman tribe. I only need to obey the orders of the barbarian sovereign. Since when does the ancestral court have the qualifications to restrict us Grand Shamans? His gaze swept across. Everyone, is it because Meng Mountain has not returned for many years that the ancestral court has gained more authority? There was silence. The eyes of the great sorcerers surged, and many of them revealed delight. They were also dissatisfied with the increasingly aggressive attitude of the ancestral court in recent years. However, the throne of the barbaric emperor was vacant, and the ancestral court was temporarily in charge. In addition, the black-clothed, great shaman lineage had many powerful experts and were powerful. They had long taken control of the ancestral court. No one dared to rashly pick a fight with them. The black-robed great shaman's face was as dark as still water. He raised his scepter and said, Meng Shan, I am in charge of the ancestral court and can temporarily replace the barbarian sovereign's authority. Do you have any objections? The great shaman of Mount Meng said, Yes. He lifted his hand and pointed. Terraflame is a great shaman of the barbarian tribe. According to the rules of the barbarian tribe, only His Majesty, the barbarian sovereign, has the right to decide his life and death. Xian-Yi, even if you control the ancestral court, you are still not the barbarian emperor. Killing the Grand Shaman is a blasphemy to the barbarian emperor's authority. The scepter in the hands of the black-robed Grand Shaman burst out with light. I, the black-robed Grand Shaman, as the ruler of the ancestral court, pronounce that the Grand Shaman of Meng Mountain has disrespected the ancestral court. He shall be imprisoned in the Black Prison for 300 years. The expressions of the other Grand Magi in the ancestral court changed. Someone stood up. Great Sorcerer Blackrobe, Meng Shan did not commit any obvious crimes. Your punishment is a little too severe. That's right. Every single great shaman of the barbarian tribe is the pillar of the tribe. How can they be severely punished because of some groundless problems? Black-robed great shaman, please retract your order. Today, Meng Shan was punished, but in the future, they might be punished as well. The black-robed Grand Magus sneered. All of you are willing to support Meng Shan. In other words, how dissatisfied are you with me ruling the ancestral court? Everyone's expression changed slightly. Boom, the scepter's light erupted. The entire barbarian ancestral court was activated at this moment. Deep rumbling sounds came from the depths of the mountain. An invisible suppressive force descended and enveloped all the great magi. Black-clothed great shaman, what are you doing? A great shaman roared in shock and anger. The black-robed grand magus was expressionless. Today, I will use the power of the ancestral court to suppress the heretics among the grand magi and establish the status and authority of the ancestral court. His cold eyes swept across the crowd. The throne of the barbarian emperor is empty, and the barbarian tribe is without a leader. This is the main reason why we are being suppressed and hunted by the desolate. I want to revive the berserkers, and I want the ancestral court to have absolute control over the entire berserkers. I will definitely kill the Earth Fire Grand Magus. Meng Shan has spoken rudely and will definitely be punished severely. If anyone else has any objections, do so now. There was dead silence. The great shamans of the barbarian race in the ancestral court were furious. They suddenly understood that the purpose of today's trial assembly was not to kill the Grand Magus of the earthly fire, but to use this opportunity to establish the ancestral court's absolute rule over them. From then on, the great wizard was no longer aloof. The ancestral court controlled everything. No one was willing, but who dared to object? This was the ancestral court. The black-clothed great shaman who held a scepter was a nearly invincible existence. Not to mention, the black-clothed great shaman had controlled the ancestral court for many years. The silence and cold gazes of the surrounding ancestral court guards were enough to explain everything. Suppressed by the power of the ancestral court, their strength was limited. Even if they fell out with the ancestral court, they would only be suppressed. There was silence. Very good. The black-clothed great shaman revealed a satisfied expression. Since everyone agrees, then these two decisions will take effect immediately. Wait a moment. Qin Yu walked into the ancestral court and looked at the great shaman of Meng Shan. Look, in the end, we still have to face him head-on, right? The great shaman of Meng Shan bitterly smiled. Yes. The black-clothed great shaman frowned. Who are you? A trace of surprise appeared in his eyes, because at this moment, he was shocked to discover that the power of the ancestral court could not suppress this person's aura. Or, to be more precise, they felt awe. They did not dare to approach the person in front of them. Instead, they revealed a nearly submissive attitude. This was the first time such a situation had occurred. Qin Yu flicked his sleeves, and the suppressive power of the ancestral court retreated like the tide. The Grand Magi gathered here widened their eyes in shock. Facing the gazes of the crowd, Qin Yu walked forward towards the black-clothed great shaman. Stop! The black-clothed great shaman suddenly panicked, and the scepter in his hand lit up. But at this moment, Qin Yu glanced over, and the scepter in his hand extinguished. Who are you? The black-clothed great shaman roared. Qin Yu said indifferently, Meng Shan. The great shaman of Meng Shan, who had regained his freedom, took a deep breath and looked around. Everyone, the person you see today is the new emperor of the barbarians. His words were earth-shattering. Ancestral Court 1 was chaos. The great shamans stood up abruptly, and their eyes widened in shock. Barbarian Emperor. The black-clothed great shaman's pupils constricted as he roared. Nonsense. If you are the new emperor of the barbarians, how could the ancestral court not sense it? No, I recognize you. You are the heaven-splitting sword sex Qin Yu. He raised his scepter. Meng Shan, how dare you bring an outsider into the ancestral court? This is a serious crime of colluding with the enemy. That's right. He is indeed the heaven-splitting sword sex Qin Yu. I have seen his image, but why can he directly repel the suppression power of the ancestral court? Qin Yu said, I am indeed Qin Yu, but at the same time, I am also the new emperor of the barbarians. With these words, the entire ancestral court violently shook. Rumble, rumble, rumble. It was as if a boundless power was about to erupt, but it was forcefully suppressed. Puff! The black-clothed great shaman spat out a mouthful of blood, his face pale. But Chinyu's cold gaze fell on him. Black-clothed great shaman, what a good method. You imprisoned the power of the ancestral court and tried to refine it. Do you want to rebel? Ah! The great shaman cried out in alarm. The black-clothed great shaman angrily shouted, "Stop slandering me. I don't know what method you used to restrain the power of the ancestral court, but you dare to pretend to be the barbarian emperor. This is an unforgivable crime. Come, suppress Chinyu." Boom! Boom! A powerful aura erupted. The 6 great shamans of the ancestral court attacked at the same time. Humph! Chinyu coldly coughed. The faces of the 6 great shamans paled, and they spat out a mouthful of blood. Mengshan, you have offended me. According to the laws of the barbarians, what is your punishment? The great shaman respectfully said, "Reporting to your majesty, your punishment is death." Very good. Chinyu raised his hand. No. The 6 barbarian great shamans screamed in horror. In the next moment, their heads exploded, red and white blood splashing out. With a single strike, the foundation of the ancestral court that the black-clothed great shaman used to control was instantly wiped out. The black-clothed great shaman's eyes widened. Chinyu. But his heart was filled with fear. He no longer doubted his identity. If it weren't for the barbarian emperor, how could he control the life and death of all the barbarians? With a single strike, he had killed 6 great shamans. Since Chinyu didn't hesitate to kill the 6 of them, then he could naturally kill him as well. You forced me to do this. The black-clothed great shaman angrily roared. The scepter in his hand shined once more. Barbarian Emperor, Chinyu is... His voice came to an abrupt end. He was grabbed by the throat by an invisible force and lifted into the air. His face flushed red and his blood vessels bulged. He could no longer make a sound. His eyes widened and turned bloodshot, revealing endless panic. Chinyu lifted his hand. The scepter struggled for a moment before it howled into his hand. He looked down, his eyes cold. The black-clothed great shaman is indeed worthy of being the existence that controls the ancestral court. In order to become the new barbarian emperor, he is willing to submit to the great Qin. He lifted his hand and grasped. Wisps of aura flew out from the scepter and fell into his hand, constantly struggling. Then, these auras violently surged and a face appeared. It was Barbarian Emperor. Chinyu. He only had time to roar out in shock and anger. Pa! This massive aura had already been crushed to pieces by Chinyu. The terrifying pressure that had just descended was forcefully interrupted. Barbarian Emperor! The great shaman roared. Black-clothed, how dare you collude with the great Qin? Do you want to put my barbarian race to death? The other great shamans in the ancestral court were all furious and fearful. If Chinyu hadn't directly suppressed the black-clothed great shaman today, they would still be in the dark. It wouldn't be long before the barbarians would fall into the hands of the great Qin. The black-clothed great shaman's face was ashen. His eyes were filled with hatred as he stared at Chinyu. Bang! He was thrown to the ground. Chinyu stepped over him and walked step by step to the throne of the ancestral court. I am the barbarian emperor. Naturally, only I can sit on this seat. He turned around and sat down. Rumble. The ancestral court, grotto heaven, small world of the barbarians surged. The power of the ancestral court that was sealed underground instantly broke through the seal. They gathered and poured into Chinyu's body. At this moment, his figure suddenly condensed between heaven and earth. He was like an ancient giant that stood tall. It's His Majesty, the Barbarian Emperor. Our race's new emperor has succeeded the throne. Greetings, Your Majesty. The great shamans of the ancestral court knelt down excitedly. Countless barbarians in the ancestral court, grotto heaven small world, also sensed the changes coming from the ancestral court. An old barbarian trembled in excitement and struggled to kneel on the ground. Barbarian Emperor, Barbarian Emperor, our emperor has returned. The black-clothed great shaman stared blankly at the scene in front of him. His body suddenly trembled, and a crazed expression appeared on his face. Chinyu, so what if you're the new emperor? The ancestral court of the barbarians is controlled by the black-clothed bloodline. Even if you kill me, the black-clothed bloodline will teleport the location of the ancestral court out. When Emperor Qin descends and destroys the ancestral court, all of you will die. The great shaman of Meng Mountain was furious. Shut up, black-clothed great shaman. If you dare to do this, your bloodline will be completely wiped out by the barbarians. The black-clothed great shaman grinned sinisterly. So what if it's wiped out? The black-clothed bloodline has already been destroyed, so let's die together. The great shaman's faces were filled with fear. The black-clothed bloodline had been in charge of the ancestral court for many years and had long infiltrated every corner. No one knew what they had left behind. Even if they didn't hesitate to slaughter and wash the black-clothed bloodline with blood, they still might not be able to eliminate the hidden dangers. And once the location of the ancestral court was truly known by Emperor Qin and he descended, then the barbarians would welcome a calamity. The black-clothed great shaman wildly laughed. He stared at Chinyu, his face filled with joy. So what if he was the barbarian emperor? And this position was just a little bit away from being his. Since he was going to die, then he would drag everyone down with him. Chinyu was expressionless. He suddenly said, "Black-clothed, are you surprised that when you faced me just now, you suddenly didn't have the strength to resist?" The black-clothed great shaman's expression froze. Chinyu said, "It's not because I suppressed you with my status as the barbarian emperor. The true reason is that from many years ago, the life and death of your black-clothed bloodline was no longer in your own hands." Chinyu lifted his hand. Light surged in his palm, condensing into a contract. In this contract, there were countless bright and dim spots of light. You might not have seen this contract before, but when you see it, your bloodline will tell you what it is. And now, this contract has been transferred to my hands. Controlling is the same as controlling the fate of your bloodline. If I want you to live, you will live. If I want you to die, Chinyu raised his hand and poked. With a miserable scream, another great shaman in the hall suddenly exploded and died. And before this, he had never revealed any relationship with the black-clothed bloodline. Even when the two sides were in a state of opposition, this great figure had stood up to speak for the great shaman of Meng Mountain. But now, the truth was in front of him. The black-clothed great shaman's body trembled, his eyes filled with fear. He naturally knew the true identity of the dead great shaman. Looking at the contract in Chinyu's hand, his entire body trembled. No, with this contract, Chinyu could really completely wipe out the entire black-clothed bloodline. Not a single one would be left. The black-clothed great shaman knelt on the ground. "Your Majesty, I was wrong. I was really wrong. I beg you, don't completely wipe us out. The black-clothed bloodline is willing to submit to you." The great shaman of Meng Mountain hesitated for a moment. He bowed and said, "Your Majesty, you have already arrived at the ancestral court. Once your identity is exposed, you will surely set off a great war that will sweep through the world. My race is in need of manpower. Why don't we just kill the leader and give the rest of the black-clothed bloodline a chance to atone for their crimes?" Yes, yes, yes. The black-clothed great shaman kowtowed again and again. "I am willing to die to quell your Majesty's anger. I beg you to be merciful." Chinyu shook his head. "I do not believe in traitors." The black-clothed great shaman froze, despair filling his face. The entire black-clothed bloodline was finished. Chinyu, if you wipe out the black-clothed bloodline, the ancestral court of the barbarian race will definitely be destroyed. I have already prepared a backup plan. Without the black-clothed bloodline maintaining it, it will expose itself on its own. The great shaman of Meng Mountain revealed a look of anger. If he wasn't forced into a desperate situation, he would never have said this. And once he truly forgave the rest of the black-clothed bloodline, it would be the same as burying a great hidden danger for the barbarians. Black-clothed, if you really do this, you will forever be a sinner of the barbarians. The black-clothed, great shaman roared. You force me. You force me to do this. He stubbornly stared at Chinyu. Chinyu, I am willing to die. I beg you to forgive the black-clothed bloodline. It is time for you to make a decision. Chinyu lifted his hand and grabbed the contract in front of him. I will not accept threats. The black-clothed great shaman's eyes widened, filled with disbelief. How dare he? He actually dared. He really dared, bang. His entire person directly exploded into pieces. At the same time, a similar situation occurred throughout the entire barbarian ancestral land, and even in the surrounding barbarian territories. Everyone in the black-clothed bloodline, as long as they had the bloodline of the signed contract flowing within them, was completely wiped out. Within the ancestral court, the smell of blood was so thick that it almost seemed tangible. This was because nearly all the guards of the ancestral court had died along with the black-clothed great shaman. Blood covered the earth. The great shamans all revealed looks of awe and fear. Their hearts trembled. His Majesty's temperament was so tough and cold. Only the great shaman of Meng Mountain could guess that Chinyu did this in the most direct and powerful way to wipe out all dissenting voices within the barbarian race in order to deal with the upcoming war. But the black-clothed bloodline had died. How could the hidden dangers of the ancestral court be resolved? He bitterly smiled. Your Majesty, we are in trouble. Chinyu withdrew his hand. Since I have killed them, I no longer fear any threats. Since there is a possibility that this place will be exposed, we will change locations and rebuild the barbarian ancestral court. The Starseed Grotto was the best choice. Chapter 1808. Great Qin Capital. Xianyang. Inside and outside the Qin Emperor's palace, there were corpses everywhere. All of the servants had been killed on the spot by the burst of aura. Blood flowed from their orifices, and a pungent stench filled the air. As the ruler of the Great Qin, although he only controlled the central desolate region, he was the true ruler of the entire desolate region. Thus, when the Qin Emperor was summoned by the black-clothed Grand Shaman, he could sense Qin Yu's aura. This also confirmed Qin Yu's true identity. Barbarian sovereign. Looking at the world, he was the ruler of billions of barbarians. This exceeded the Qin Emperor's expectations. His mind shook, and he found it hard to maintain his composure. This was because Qin Yu already had the qualifications to step onto the Joss Flame Great Road. And once he succeeded, the tightly shut palace door opened and the imperial advisor entered. Your Majesty. He respectfully bowed, his expression heavy. This was the first time in countless years that the imperial advisor had seen His Majesty lose his composure. From this, one could see how serious the situation was. Imperial advisor, I suddenly have a feeling that the Great Qin will be replaced. Tell me, with my status and identity, for me to have such thoughts, is it a sign? The imperial advisor said, Your Majesty's cultivation is heaven-piercing, and you are invincible in this world. No one can defeat you, and naturally cannot replace my Great Qin. Do not be affected. As long as you maintain your calm, you will naturally be able to deal with the phoenixes coming from all directions and ensure that the destiny of my Great Qin doesn't scatter. The Qin Emperor was expressionless. I'm indeed invincible in this world, but if the heavens want me to die, what can I do? He stood up and walked down from the throne. Qin Yu's true identity is the current barbarian sovereign. With the support of the barbarians, he will surely step onto the Joss Flame Great Road. The imperial advisor's complexion changed. He clenched his teeth. Then kill him before he truly steps onto the Joss Flame Great Road. The Qin Emperor was silent. He looked up at the sky. Before that, I would like to ask the heavens if they really want to destroy my Great Qin. As his words fell, the Qin Emperor took a step forward. Bang! The sky above suddenly shattered, and countless terrifying cracks frantically spread in all directions. The Qin Emperor walked out. Strong winds fluttered his robes, and a terrifying pressure descended, like a vast abyss. Yet, this had no effect on the Qin Emperor. He lifted his head and faced the attack head-on, a faint golden color appearing in the deep end of his eyes. We are the ruler of Great Qin and have been at peace with the heavens and earth for so long. However, Qin Yu has appeared and wants to destroy Great Qin and destroy our Tao. Today we will ask the heavens if they are willing to help we, Great Qin. A large face appeared in the skies. It opened its eyes, killed Qin Yu. A deep voice came from his mouth. The Qin Emperor laughed out loud, his voice shaking the 9 heavens. Good. On that day, the Xianyang Imperial Palace sent out an edict from the Qin Emperor. It was summarized as follows. Heaven-splitting swordsmanship sex Qin Yu is the new barbarian emperor. Summon all the countries in the wasteland region to attack the barbarian race and kill Qin Yu. As soon as the edict was announced, every country in the Great Desolation Realm responded. The wars and killings between the Desolate Man and the barbarians had started countless years ago and continued to this day. The blood feud between the two sides was as deep as the sea, and it could not be resolved. The appearance of a new barbarian emperor meant something. This had already been proven in the past war between the barbarian and desolate races. Conquer the barbarian race and kill the barbarian emperor. Otherwise, it would be a disaster for all the kingdoms in the wasteland region. Very soon, the situation of the world's war against the barbarians was set, and it was on the verge of breaking out. Swallow Mountain, the heaven-splitting sword sex mountain gate, was heavily surrounded. None of the factions were qualified to resist the Great Qin Empire's cavalry. The entire Swallow Mountain shook and trembled under the trampling of the cavalry. On this day, the swords of the sword cultivators did not ring. Qin Yu of the heaven-splitting sword sect is the new barbarian emperor. He snuck into Great Qin's territory with ulterior motives. Today, we will suppress the heaven-splitting sword sect and kill anyone who dares to resist. A Qin general roared on the giant beast, but he did not notice that the strongest sword in the army behind him, the sword cultivators' camp, were hesitating. Because whether Qin Yu was the barbarian emperor or not, he was the only true Emperor Realm sword cultivator in the world. He was the orthodox sword cultivator in the hearts of all the sword cultivators. Hu Jiming roared, "Put down your swords! Put down your swords! Damn it, do you want to die?" His face was pale, and he was sweating profusely. There was no strong fortress in front of the Great Qin's cavalry. Even the 4 sects and 4 families did not dare to resist. Not to mention that it was the heaven-splitting sword sect. Zhang Xiashan, Tai Lin, listen up, we surrender today because we don't want unnecessary casualties. Hu Jiming looked at the crowd and gritted his teeth. The sect master is still safe and sound. As long as the sect master is alive, we will have a chance to make a comeback. Heavenly Bull region, Heavenly Bull city. Nioding Tian was sweating profusely and his eyes were shaking. Barbarian Emperor. Qin Yu was the barbarian emperor. He wiped his forehead and bitterly smiled. He discovered that he had never been able to clearly see just what sort of person Qin Yu was. Wasn't he concealing himself too deeply? What would happen if people knew that the barbarian emperor's sister was raised in the Niu family? Even with Niu Dingtian's cultivation, he shuddered. The entire Niu family would be torn to pieces. His first thought was that Qin Chi must not stay here any longer. But after taking 2 steps, Niu Dingtian stopped. His face was cloudy. First, Niu Daodu would be the first to object if he sent Qin Chi away. Now, the 2 of them were as good as one person, almost inseparable. Second, if he did that, it would be tantamount to cutting ties with Qin Yu. The good relationship between them would be gone. They might even become enemies. And Qin Yu was the chosen one, little meat. Niu Dingtian gritted his teeth. He had to admit that deep in his heart, he was in awe of the unfathomable little meat. Even if the barbarians were defeated and Qin Yu was killed in the war against the barbarians, what about little meat? Niu Dingtian knew very well that even if something happened to little meat in her current state, no one could really kill her. Not even Emperor Qin. And as long as little meat didn't die, everyone who killed Qin Yu would have to face her cruel revenge. Niu Dingtian took a deep breath. He suddenly realized that the Niu family could face destruction no matter what. Alas, he let out a long sigh and sat down dejectedly. Old Nyo decided to do nothing and maintain the status quo. As long as Qin Chi-Chi's identity was not exposed, the Nyo family would be fine. Moreover, what if Qin Yu won? Although the probability was small, if that happened, Qin Chi-Chi would be a way out for the Nyo family. Even if the sun changed over their heads, the Nyo family could stand firm and even go one step further. At this time, in the barbarian ancestral court, an unprecedented great migration was underway. Qin Yu wanted to abandon the small world that the barbarians had established as their foundation since ancient times and move the ancestral court into the Star Sea Grotto Heaven. Even with the barbarian sovereign status, this was not something that could be easily done. All the barbarians in the ancestral court began to move. They were excited and anxious about the unknown as they prepared for the migration. Qin Yu sat in the ancestral court, holding the scepter in his hand. He closed his eyes slightly, and everything in the ancestral court was under his perception. At the same time, in Qin Yu's mind, a great Tao shot up into the sky. 9 winding paths reached the heavens, showing off its magnificence. Now, there were countless spots of light constantly pouring into it. That was the power of Joss flames. When the great Tao absorbed enough Joss flames, it could be ignited and transformed into the Joss flame great Tao, helping Qin Yu reach a level comparable to Emperor Qin. And now, more and more light spots were fusing in, as if a misty spring rain had fallen. The great Tao was bathed in it. The great shaman of Meng Mountain entered the ancestral court and bowed. "Greetings, your majesty." Qin Yu opened his eyes. At this moment, a faint phantom of the great Tao appeared in the depths of his eyes, releasing an invisible pressure. The great shaman of Meng Mountain's shoulders sank. He immediately revealed a happy expression. "Congratulations, your majesty." The stronger Qin Yu was, the stronger the barbarians were. In the current situation, this was naturally the best news. "What is it?" The great shaman of Meng Mountain said. "The barbarian tribes from all sides have sent news. The Qin Empire has revealed your majesty's identity and has issued an expedition order. Now, the 4 desolate regions have responded. The war against the barbarians has begun." His tone was heavy. It could be said that this was the most dangerous situation the barbarians had ever faced. Because in the previous wars, the Qin Empire had only been a bystander. It had stood high above, looking down on the barbarians. It had never personally acted. But this time, it was clear that the Qin Empire was the true instigator of this war. This was because the phrase "Qin is also the Qin" had spread throughout the desolate regions because of Emperor Qin's pursuit of Qin Yu. With the addition of the Qin Empire, the situation of the barbarians, who had been at a disadvantage against the desolate countries, was even more unoptimistic. Qin Yu's eyes narrowed, but his expression remained calm. This was because before he came to the ancestral court, he had already expected this day. The barbarian emperor's identity had been exposed. In order to prevent him from stepping onto the incense flame avenue, Emperor Qin had to suppress the barbarians. "I understand," the great shaman of Meng Mountain said. "Your Majesty, the barbarians do not fear death. Even if they have to fight against the 8 desolate countries, they will dare to fight." His eyes were firm. "Your Majesty, please take care of yourself. As long as your Majesty is safe, the barbarians will have a day where they can rise again." As the new barbarian emperor, if Qin Yu stood with the barbarians and intervened in this war, he would no longer be able to hide himself. Emperor Qin must be looking for a chance to kill Qin Yu in one strike. Qin Yu was silent. He knew that the great shaman of Meng Mountain's reminder had good intentions. But, as the new barbarian emperor, how could he watch the barbarian tribes suffer a catastrophe while he stayed out of it? Of course, Qin Yu knew that Emperor Qin was desperately looking for him, trying to kill him at a controllable stage. Going head-on, without a care in the heat of the moment, was not something he would do. But this did not mean that Qin Yu could not do anything. On the contrary, before entering the ancestral court of the barbarian race, he had already started to make arrangements. Bai Feifei should have left the 13th floor by now. Qin Yu's eyes flashed. Even if he was the barbarian emperor, as long as the Tower Master wanted to transform into a long-lived species, he would naturally stand opposite to Emperor Qin. Although the enemy of an enemy was not necessarily a friend, it was not too difficult to cooperate and use each other for a while. Meng Mountain. What are the preparations for the ancestral court? The great shaman of Meng Mountain said, "Your Majesty, we can start moving in at most 3 days." "Good. Then we will rebuild the ancestral court in 3 days." "Yes, Your Majesty." Soon, 3 days had passed. In the ancestral court, all the barbarians widened their eyes and looked at the highest mountain peak. Their Majesty, the future and hope of the entire barbarian race, was there. And today, the new emperor would lead them to complete the migration of the ancestral court. "Grandfather, the ancestral court is the foundation of our barbarian race. Isn't it a bit rash to move it so easily?" A young barbarian asked worriedly. His words received some response. The eyes of the surrounding barbarians gathered in this direction. The old barbarian's hair and beard had already turned white. He glared at him and angrily shouted, "Fool! His Majesty's decision is naturally correct. You must remember that His Majesty is the emperor of our barbarian race, the ruler of all barbarians in the world. His will cannot be questioned. My race's new emperor has returned. He will move the barbarian ancestral court and lead us into a new era of the barbarian race." His eyes were excited and his face flushed red. "Children, open your eyes wide. The glory that our barbarian race has lost will shine once more in this world under His Majesty's leadership. The barbarians are its true masters." In the next moment, rumble, rumble, the entire ancestral court suddenly shook. It rose up from the ground like a great ship that carried mountains and rivers as it rushed into the skies. Accelerate, accelerate. The ancestral court became faster and faster. Finally, it crashed into the edge of the heavenly passage world. Space violently shook and it squeezed out. Within the ancestral court, Qin Yu grasped his scepter, his expression solemn. Moving the ancestral court was not a simple matter. It would cause a great stir. And once any true emperor in the world discovered it, Emperor Qin would surely descend. Thus, he had to complete the migration in the shortest time possible. Qin Yu lifted his scepter and shouted, "Mountain River Sword." The mountain river sword appeared. It fell outside the ancestral court. It rose up and slashed forwards. Rumble, rumble. There was a heaven-shaking explosion. The entire world trembled. The skies in front of them shattered and collapsed, forming a crack that nearly pierced through the heavens. The accelerating barbarian ancestral court crashed into it without hesitation. In the next moment, with a violent shaking, giant stars appeared in front of the barbarians. They had already entered the Star Sea Heavenly Passage world. This is the Star Sea Heavenly Passage. What a vast territory. It's actually divided into a sea of stars with many stars scattered within. How is this a heavenly passage world? This is clearly a corner of the entire world, the same as a world of its own. If my barbarian ancestral court can take root here, then so what if the desolate man launches a world war against the barbarians? My barbarian race can still continue on. Within the ancestral court, countless barbarians were incomparably excited. But now, Qin Yu's complexion wasn't relaxed at all. He turned around and looked at the crack behind him. It was rapidly fading and healing. In just several breaths of time, it would completely disappear and the aura of the barbarian ancestral court would be severed. But it just so happened that these several breaths of time were the most dangerous times. This was because the disturbance was far too great. Even if he tried to compress the process as much as possible, it was still possible that Qin Emperor would arrive in the next moment. He grasped the scepter in his left hand and the mountain river sword in his right. Qin Yu had already prepared himself for the worst. He would face Qin Emperor once more. With his cultivation, it was true that he wouldn't be able to withstand a single strike from Qin Emperor. But with the scepter in hand, that was the same as having the entire barbarian ancestral land behind him. Borrowing the strength of the ancestral land was what gave Qin Yu the confidence to take this risk. Migration was imperative, and he couldn't take any risks, because although the Black Clothes lineage had been exterminated, hidden dangers still existed. The crack grew smaller and smaller. But at this time, Qin Yu's heart shrank. Bang! The skies outside the crack shattered. A terrifying aura arrived. Even though he was far away, Qin Yu could still feel the peerlessly overbearing aura belonging to Qin Emperor. In the end, he had still come. Qin Yu took a deep breath and stepped forwards. The mountain river sword in his hand hummed. Just as he was about to slash out with his sword, the descending Qin Emperor suddenly roared out, "Tower Master, you dare to become enemies with my great Qin." Rumble, rumble. The skies completely shattered. Qin Emperor arrived, but he was a step too slow. The spatial crack vanished, and the aura belonging to the barbarian ancestral court was isolated by the star-sea heavenly passage. "Ah!" Qin Emperor angrily roared. He punched out with his fist, shattering mountains and rivers. Chapter 1809. After ascertaining that the Qin Emperor couldn't do anything, he continued to trace the energy and barged into the heavenly grotto of the star ocean forcefully. Qin Yu relaxed a little, and a smile appeared at the corner of his lips. The effect of having Bai Fei go to the 13th floor was now being demonstrated. Now, though the barbarians were the target of all, the Qin Emperor had one more opponent that he could not afford to underestimate. Furthermore, the 13th Tower's declaration was a form of deterrence to the various kingdoms in the wasteland region. It was enough to make them more fearful and hesitant when they made some moves. Of course, this was far from enough. But Qin Yu would continue to increase the price. He would destroy the world's war against the barbarians and fight for more space for the barbarians to live. Otherwise, with the desolate region's various kingdoms working together with Great Qin as the leader, the barbarians would have no chance of winning this war. He turned around and returned to the Starsea Grotto. With a thought, the Goliath ancestral court descended upon Azure Dragon Mountain. Rumble, the ground trembled. The barbarian ancestral court and Azure Dragon Mountain were rapidly merging. This was something that no one else would be able to accomplish. But to Qin Yu, it was a very simple matter. He was the spirit of fortune of heaven and earth, the master of the star ocean grotto heaven. As the barbarian sovereign, he naturally had complete control over the barbarian ancestral court. Because of it, Azure Dragon Mountain had fused with the Berserkers' ancestral court, and it meant that the Berserkers had obtained the blessing of the world. And this was the key reason why Qin Yu decided to move the Goliath ancestral court to Starsea Grotto Heaven. Very soon, the great shamans among the Berserkers sensed that something was different. It was a feeling that was difficult to describe with words. It was as if he had suddenly taken off a soaked cotton-padded shirt that he was wearing. He felt extremely comfortable and relaxed. It's the world. Its suppression on us Berserkers has disappeared, a great shaman said excitedly. Another great shaman growled. Ever since we Berserkers were defeated by the humans and lost our status as the rulers of the world, we fled to this desolate land. We lost the favor of the world and suffered an invisible suppression. And now, this suppression has finally been broken. From today onwards, the barbarian tribe can finally straighten their backs and stand at the same height as the desolate man. They don't need to bear the burden of facing the enemy. The Grand Shaman of Meng Mountain raised his head and looked at the sky above the ancestral court. Now, as it merged into Mount Azure Dragon, Qin Yu's figure appeared again, majestic and powerful, like a god supporting the heavens. And now, the strength of the world's destiny lingered and tumbled around Qin Yu's body, adding to his boundless aura. He was incredibly excited, and tears fell down his cheeks. His majesty gave the kismet of the world to us Berserkers. The great shaman of Meng Mountains knelt on the ground and cried out loudly, "Our barbarian race has welcomed back his majesty, and we will definitely be able to rise again and stand at the peak of the world." All the Berserkers in the ancestral court were filled with anxiety and panic. At that moment, all of them retreated and knelt on the ground with the great shaman. For the first time in their hearts, they truly believed that His Majesty would lead the berserkers to a better place. Rumble. More and more Joss flame power erupted, fusing into Qin Yu's great Tao. He could clearly feel the Joss flame great Tao condensing. He was accumulating his foundation and waiting for an opportunity. Qin Yu smiled. His decision to take the risk of migrating the Goliath ancestral court was indeed correct. He stood up and raised the scepter in his hand. The towering figure followed his movements, and a deep, mighty voice came out of his mouth. I am the Emperor of Berserkers, and I am also the spirit of Kismet in the world. I will naturally remove the world suppression for us Berserkers. From today onwards, the Star Sea Grotto will be the new ancestral court, the starting point for my Berserkers. I guarantee you that the Berserkers will rise and suppress all. Countless Berserkers cheered. Long live His Majesty, the Berserker Sovereign. Long live His Majesty, the Berserker Sovereign. Kacha, Kacha. In Qin Yu's hand, the surface of the scepter that belonged to the ancestral court suddenly shattered. Under his surprised gaze, a golden liquid flowed out and directly fused into Qin Yu's body. As for the scepter fragment, it seemed as if it had been weathered for countless years, directly turning into powder. A formidable strength roared and shook his body. It didn't enter Qin Yu's great Tao, but fused into his flesh and blood. In just several breaths of time, Qin Yu's mortal body had been tempered to its strongest degree. He could crush the void with a fist. This was the true Berserker sovereign body, the strongest body in the world. At this moment, Qin Yu was certain that even if he didn't use the power of the great Tao, he could still kill a true sovereign with just his mortal body. Countless memories belonging to the Berserker sovereign's bloodline exploded in his mind. Qin Yu closed his eyes and rapidly absorbed and organized them. After a long time, he opened his eyes, revealing a trace of vicissitudes. So this was the Berserker race. In these memories, Qin Yu saw the boundless ancient world. He saw the 100,000-foot-tall Berserker ancestors that could pluck the moon and stars with a wave of their hands. At that time, they had another name, the Ancient Race. But the Ancient Race was far too strong. Their existence was strong enough to threaten the highest and lofty existences. Thus, the great calamity of the Ancient Race arrived. Their corpses were suppressed beneath the temples, becoming the pillars that supported the highest existences. The Ancient Race was destroyed, their last remaining bloodline. Because they had evolved into the Berserker race, they no longer possessed the noble bloodline of their ancient ancestors. Qin Yu finally understood why he had become the new Berserker sovereign. It was because he was the last ancient with the bloodline of the ancient race. He was naturally the most noble and powerful of all the Berserkers in the world. His position as the Berserker sovereign was irreplaceable. At the same time, the fully awakened Berserker sovereign's inherited memories allowed Qin Yu to learn many secrets about the world. For instance, the desolate domain, the human cultivator system, the strength of the Qin sovereign, and also the key to cultivating the great Tao of burning incense. To borrow the power of an immortal object to become a so-called immortal was to sever one's own great Tao and never ascend to the eternal realm. To transform into a long-lived being was a mistake in cultivating the great Tao. It was a mistake that countless cultivators, even someone as powerful as the 13th floor master, could not resist. But who would have thought that breaking into the eternal realm and transforming into a long-lived being was also a mistake? In ancient times, it was a realm created by some formidable existences that were too weak to step onto the great Tao of burning incense and were unwilling to die. This was because once one transformed into a long-lived being, they would become immortal and would never be able to change. They would never be able to truly ascend to the peak of the great Tao. The only correct path was the great Tao of burning incense. To defy the heavens with the strength of a single person, no matter how strong or talented they were, there was no chance of success. Only by fusing incense into the great Tao and combining the strength of all living beings could one take a step further. This was the only great Tao. As for the berserkers, or perhaps it could be called the ancient race, they had already attempted to establish their own divine kingdom in ancient times, establishing an era that belonged to the ancient race. It was because of this that they encountered that great calamity that nearly destroyed the ancient race. But now, Qin Yu had to step onto the path that the ancestors of the ancient race had never walked. Qin Yu took a deep breath and suppressed all his thoughts. His expression was firm. However, he was well aware that it would be extremely difficult to walk down this path. Not to mention the fact that the Qin Emperor would try to kill Qin Yu after discovering his identity. Just lighting the great Tao of burning incense was not something that could be accomplished in a short period of time. In ancient times, the ancient race was so powerful that they even had the strength to threaten the highest existences. Even so, they weren't able to overcome the great calamity and successfully light the great Tao of burning incense. So, even though he had smoothly crossed the threshold of the great Tao of burning incense, Qin Yu still didn't feel relaxed. He had to think of a way to speed up the process of lighting the great Tao of burning incense. The threat that Qin Yu faced wasn't just Emperor Qin. And in this matter, looking at the entire world, there were only two people that could help him. The first was without a doubt Emperor Qin. As the only person in the present world who had lit the great Tao of burning incense, an invincible existence in the world, there was no one more qualified to speak on this matter than him. But for Qin Yu to ask him for help was no different from seeking death. The second was Min Changjing. This old fellow had hidden his depths, and it was unknown just how many methods he had. Yet, he knew how to step onto the great Tao of burning incense. Then, it was possible that he knew how to speed up his cultivation. Of course, Qin Yu didn't have absolute confidence he could do it. But at this time, he could only try. Not too long ago, he had found Min Changjing and personally put on a show of threatening him. To turn around and look for him again, cough, cough, that didn't seem right. But this thought only existed for a second before it was cut off by Qin Yu without hesitation. He couldn't even live on, so why would he care about such things? Once the ancestral court completely fused with Azure Dragon Mountain, he would go. 2 days later, the rumbling of the earth disappeared. The barbarian ancestral court had truly fused with Azure Dragon Mountain. Qin Yu's thoughts stirred. Soon, the great shaman of Meng Mountain arrived. Following him was the great shaman of Earth Fire. He had been injured and had been recuperating. Now, he knelt on the ground and respectfully kowtowed. Earth Fire greets your majesty. Thank you for saving my life. Qin Yu flicked his sleeves. I'm the barbarian emperor. I naturally won't stand idly by as a great shaman is harmed. His eyes fell on the two. I will soon leave the ancestral court and go to the outside world to find a way to speed up the incense flame great Tao. I will leave the internal affairs of the barbarians to the great shamans. With the entire world attacking the barbarians will inevitably be under great pressure. The early stages of the war will be extremely difficult. Send a message to the barbarian tribes and have them gather their strength to retreat. For now, don't clash with the armies of the other countries. I will think of a way to solve the current situation as soon as possible. The great shamans of Meng Mountain and Earth Fire bowed. Your Majesty, rest assured that we will do our best to maintain the situation of the barbarians and wait for your return. Qin Yu nodded. Good. Shua. His figure vanished from sight. It was empty in Changdao. Qin Yu looked around and finally confirmed the bad news. Min Changjing had run away. It was just like when he was threatened and schemed against by Midi. He didn't hesitate to drag his family away from the western wasteland imperial capital. He didn't want this Changdao place anymore. He left very simply and thoroughly. He had almost erased all traces of the Min family here. This caused Qin Yu to frown, embarrassment in his eyes. This was because the facts had proven that Min Changjing's decisiveness was reasonable. Qin Yu had come looking for him again. What should he do now? an unfathomably deep, true sovereign who had lived for countless years. If he wanted to hide, it would be difficult for others to find him. At this time, Chinyu frowned. He turned and looked at the girl with a long braid who had emerged from the water. Why haven't you left? This girl was the old chef's daughter. Her clothes were soaked in the lake water, and her curves were revealed. She walked over, her expression calm. Because I don't want Master to continue running away. Chinyu said so. The girl smiled. I know where Master is. I will take you there. Your request. The girl said, I hope that your Majesty, the barbarian sovereign, will not use young Master to threaten me again. I don't want to be a widow. Chinyu nodded. I agree. The girl walked over. Hold me. Chinyu raised an eyebrow. She had a calm expression. I'm not a true sovereign, so I can't descend with a thought. Also, your Majesty, if you don't react quickly enough, once Master discovers something is wrong, you won't be able to find him. Chinyu reached out and pulled the girl into his arms. The cool lake water and boiling hot body brought about a strange stimulation. He suddenly smelled a sweet fragrance. In the next moment, Chinyu grabbed the girl's neck and pulled her in front of him. You are quite bold. The girl found it hard to breathe. Her face flushed red. I admit defeat, but I really do know where Master is hiding. Chinyu's eyes were ice cold. Hula! The water surface was broken again. The old chef emerged, his face filled with panic. Your Majesty, please spare me. Please spare me. He glared at his daughter. You stupid girl. Who told you to mess around? You're seeking death. Chinyu was expressionless. His fingers tightened. The girl revealed a look of fear. The old chef screamed. Your Majesty, the barbarian sovereign. Chinyu stopped. This is the last time. Don't test my patience. Where is Min Chongjing? I will bring your Majesty there. The old chef paled. Chinyu flicked his sleeves. Bang! Space collapsed, sucking in the three people and causing them to vanish from sight. In the next moment, in an endless sea of bamboo, the drowsy Min Chongjing, who had been lying on a bamboo chair, suddenly jumped up as if his butt had been set on fire. He turned to flee, but it was already too late. Hum! The cry of a sword erupted. An endless sharp aura covered Min Chongjing. His body froze. He turned around, his face dark and gloomy. Chinyu, you have gone too far. Chinyu also knew that he had gone too far, but there was nothing he could do. If he went too far, he would die, in the face of life or death. The lethality of these words to Chinyu was nearly zero. Master Min, I am truly sorry. I have come to eat with you again. Min Chongjing's lips trembled. Eat? Was there anyone who ate like this? His gaze fell on the dazed old chef, and then on his daughter, who was still in Chinyu's grasp. He sighed and said, What a sin! Isn't it good to live a peaceful life? I have already forgotten what happened in the past, so why do you still remember it? Old chef's body trembled. Master, I have let you down. Min Chongjing waved his hand and gritted his teeth. What nonsense! Didn't you hear His Majesty Barbarian Emperor say that he will come to eat with us? You and your daughter, hurry up and prepare. What? Are you waiting for me to cook for you? Old chef suddenly looked up. Ah, yes, Master. Please wait a moment. I will prepare immediately. He looked at Chinyu with pleading eyes. Chinyu let go. Cough, cough, cough. The girl with the long braid coughed violently. Her eyes fell on Chinyu, revealing a look of fear. Just now, she really thought that she was going to die. Stupid girl, hurry up and leave with me. Old chef grabbed her and turned to run, afraid that Chinyu would change his mind the next moment. Soon, only Chinyu and Min Chongjing were left in this open space. AI, Your Majesty Barbarian Emperor, what kind of status do you have? Moreover, the current situation is grim, so you should return to the barbarians to manage the situation. Why are you looking for an old man like me? Min Chongjing had a bitter expression. I beg you, can you just treat me like a fart and let me go? Chinyu shook his head. I do not dare to treat Master Min as a fart, so I cannot let you go. Min Chongjing clenched his teeth. Surname Chin, just what do you want? His voice suddenly stopped, because at this moment, Chinyu pointed a finger. As his finger fell, the aura of Joss Flame spread out. Min Chongjing cried out, Joss Flame Avenue. He stubbornly stared at Chinyu, his eyes filled with shock. Chapter 1810. Chinyu drew back his hand. He nodded. I must thank Lord Min for helping my sect cross the threshold. Min Chongjing. Was that what I thought? Bullshit. Why? For so many years, he had tried countless times, tossing and turning, hovering between life and death. In the end, he had failed every time. There wasn't even the slightest chance of success. Otherwise, why would he be willing to give up? But just how long had passed? He hadn't even warmed his, but when Chinyu came knocking on his door and told him that he had succeeded, how could he bully others like this? But the truth was right in front of him. Min Chongjing opened his mouth. Congratulations. These two words were incomparably difficult to say. It was like a stone was stuck in his chest and throat. Chinyu faintly smiled. I actually think that Lord Min should be the one to say congratulations. Min Chongjing was confused. What? My sect stepped onto the incense flame Great Tao, and it was all thanks to Lord Min's guidance. I will not forget this kindness and will definitely protect the safety of my family. Chinyu's lips curled up. After all, if Emperor Qin were to find out that Lord Min told me the secrets of the incense flame Great Tao, I'm sure he would be very angry. Min Chongjing's eyes widened. How could he not understand? After all, Chinyu had already placed a naked thread in front of him. He said that he would protect the family. In other words, if he didn't cooperate, Emperor Qin would definitely find out. Chinyu had a calm expression. If he had to speak of guilt, he would feel a bit guilty. After all, Min Chongjing hadn't provoked him and didn't owe him anything. To force him to this point was too much. But going too far was better than dying. Min Chongjing rubbed his face. He sighed. Your Majesty, barbaric sovereign, has already spoken to this point. What else can I do? A single misstep could lead to 1,000 years of regret. Chinyu said, Lord Min, rest assured. The war between the barbarians and the desolate region countries has just begun. The final outcome is unknown. Min Chongjing didn't speak. Chinyu understood his meaning. From the current situation, even if he was barbaric sovereign, he didn't have the qualifications to compete with Emperor Qin. To say that the war between the two sides was like an egg striking a stone was too exaggerated. But the chances of victory weren't high. Your Majesty, barbaric sovereign, let's eat first. We can talk as we eat. Chinyu nodded. All right. Old chef and his young lady moved very quickly. In the time it took for them to talk, they had already prepared a few dishes. The fragrance of the wine filled the room. Everything was placed on the table, and the father and daughter took the initiative to leave. Min Chongjing lifted the jug of wine and poured a cup for himself. After a moment of hesitation, he poured another cup for Chinyu. He raised his cup and said, Your Majesty, barbarian sovereign, I do not wish for prosperity. I only hope that after today, you can let us go. Chinyu looked at his wine cup and shook his head. The general trend has been formed. It will sweep through the world, and no one will be able to remain uninvolved. Master Min, even if I give you a promise today, if there are any problems in the future, I will still come looking for you. I don't want to lie to you. Min Chongjing gritted his teeth. No room for negotiation? Chinyu nodded. Min Chongjing raised his head and gulped down the wine in one gulp. His expression was extremely gloomy. Chinyu picked up a glass of wine and drank it. Then he put it down, remaining silent. He could feel Min Chongjing's struggle and hesitation. He was also certain that the quiet bamboo forest with a huge volcano crater that could be torn to shreds by the eruption of magma at any moment. If he took a step back, he could avoid all of this. But Chinyu couldn't retreat. In the present world, besides Emperor Qin, the only person who understood the Joss Flame Great Tao was Min Chongjing. Who? Min Chongjing let out a long, long breath. Then, his complexion became tranquil. He picked up his chopsticks and began to eat. Your Majesty, barbarian sovereign, for what matter have you come here today? Chinyu smiled. He lifted the jug of wine and poured a cup for Min Chongjing before pouring a cup for himself. I came here to ask Master Min what I should do after stepping onto the Joss Flame Great Tao to speed up the process of igniting the flames. After all, The current world situation is extremely perilous, and there isn't much time left for me. Min Chongjing was silent for a moment. He said, I have done some research, but I have never truly cultivated the Joss Flame Great Tao, so I cannot be certain. Qin Yu said, there is no harm in speaking. Min Chongjing said, first, find more believers and collect more incense. As long as there is enough of them, you will naturally be able to speed up the process. Second, your Majesty needs to find some formidable followers. Their approval is far more useful than ordinary incense. Third, on the 13th floor, your Majesty, perhaps you don't know, but the information I obtained regarding the Incense Flame Avenue came from the 13th floor. He paused for a moment, and fear appeared in his eyes. Or, to be more precise, it came from the White Jade Capital. Qin Yu frowned. White Jade Capital. After awakening the memories of the barbarian sovereign's lineage, he naturally knew what kind of place this was. Behind it was the cultivation system of the human race. His thoughts raced several times. Qin Yu said, that's it. Min Shi shook his head. There's one last point, and that is the Joss Flame Spirit. He bears the incense of the God Nation, which is why he cultivates the Joss Flames. The key to Tao. To speed up the Joss Flame path, perhaps we can start by increasing the power of the Joss Flame spirits. Of course, this needs to be done with caution. Otherwise, it will be very troublesome if we can't get rid of our tail. Qin Yu's eyes brightened. Well said. He raised his cup. Thank you, Lord Min. Min Chongjing shook his head. I hope that I will never receive His Majesty's thanks again. Qin Yu stood up. That will be a bit difficult. He looked at Min Chongjing. We hope that we will be able to sense Lord Min's aura in God Nation as soon as possible. Shua, his figure vanished from sight. Min Chongjing sat there, motionless. He drank cup after cup until the flask was empty. Old Chef's face was full of worry. He nervously walked over. Master, with just a single shout, he knelt down. Min Chongjing glanced at him and sneered. Now you know what fear is? What were you doing earlier? Old Chef felt wronged. I only have a daughter. Nonsense. You're just a master. Min Chongjing rolled his eyes. He tossed down his wine cup and sighed. Then he stood up and left. Master, where are you going? Min Chongjing said, to the barbarians. Old Chef's eyes widened. Do you really think that the wine that Qin Yu poured was delicious? Since I drank wine, I have to go out and work for others, otherwise I will definitely die. Min Chongjing's face was filled with anger. He had been free and unfettered for so long, but in the end he still hadn't been able to jump out. However, there was one point about Qin Yu. He could be considered open and above board. When the great calamity swept through the world, it was impossible for him to stay out of it. Shua, Min Chongjing vanished from sight. Old thing, stay here and look after the house. Don't let anything happen to my son, otherwise your daughter will be a widow for sure. The fisherman couldn't remember how many times he had seen Qin Yu, but there was one thing he was sure of. It definitely wasn't anything good. He glanced at the endless sea of clouds beneath star, sifting mountain, and made a decision. He couldn't stay in this land any longer. He would rather starve and find a new source of food to leave Jade Gate Pass. In this broken place, whoever wanted to come could come. However, this time, the content of the conversation slightly exceeded the fisherman's expectations, causing his eyes to suddenly brighten. A scorching hot aura surged within him. Is Goliath sovereign speaking the truth? Qin Yu faced the sea of clouds, his hands held behind his back. I am the Goliath sovereign, so my words naturally carry enormous weight. As long as the ancient remnant bloodline is willing to join the barbarians, I can promise you that I will recognize the ancient remnant bloodline status and give you a pure land where you can live. You will no longer need to be busy fleeing for your lives. I cannot guarantee victory in the end. But for the ancient remnant bloodline, so what if the situation is bad? It can't be worse than it is now. The fisherman's face darkened. After several breaths of time, he clenched his teeth. This matter is too important. I cannot make the decision alone. Then let someone who can make the decision come. I don't have much time, so you had best hurry. All right, The fisherman turned and left. Qin Yu's figure flickered. He still faced the sea of clouds. Occasionally, he could hear the cries of the flying fish. These little fellows were extremely restless. Beneath Qin Yu's gaze, they could feel endless fear. But this sea of clouds was still their final resting place. They didn't dare to run, nor did they have anywhere to run. This was truly an extremely sorrowful matter. And in fact, the ancient remnant bloodline was in a similar situation to these flying fish. Facing Qin Yu was like the flying fish facing Qin Yu. They had nowhere to run and were powerless to resist. In the end, they would slowly weaken until they perished. This was the reason why Qin Yu first came to find the ancient remnant bloodline today. This was because Qin Yu could give them a new possibility. Even if it didn't seem too great right now, for a race that had fallen into a quagmire and was on the verge of destruction, they should know what choice to make. Space shook and the fisherman stepped out. Two more figures followed behind him. Goliath Sovereign, we have arrived. Qin Yu turned around. I believe that you have already made your decision. Behind the fisherman, the only female ancient remnant true empress suddenly said, Goliath Sovereign does not need to worry. The one who has arrived is Qin Emperor. Qin Yu lifted a hand and pointed in the direction of Xianyang. If Qin Emperor makes a move, I will naturally know. This was not nonsense. The Qin Empire of today was indeed Qin Emperor's great Qin, but Qin Yu was also deeply involved with it. The Qin Emperor resided in the Qin Empire. To Qin Yu, he was the bright moon in the dark night, visible as he looked up. Otherwise, he wouldn't have allowed the fisherman to leave and waited at the peak of star-sifting mountain. I don't have much time. Tell me your decision. After a brief silence, the three ancient remnant true empresses fell to their knees. The saint race is willing to follow Goliath Sovereign. The fisherman's words were the key to their decision. The situation couldn't be any worse than it was now. No one knew what degree the ancient remnant bloodline had fallen to after being hunted down and suppressed by the Qin Empire for countless years. Of the powerful races that ruled the world in the past, only four remained. True empresses, each one struggling at death's door, not daring to reveal themselves. After the daunting pavilion master was killed by Qin Yu, there were only three left. The ancient remnant bloodlines had truly reached the edge of the abyss of destruction. In the Battle of Xianyang, Qin Yu displayed his formidable strength. Although Qin Emperor was still invincible in the world, the fact that he was able to escape unscathed was in itself a kind of qualification. Moreover, Qin Yu also had the status of Goliath Sovereign. Without a doubt, his chances of victory increased by several degrees. Thus, the ancient remnant bloodline was willing to give it their all. If they won, they could change the dire situation of their entire race. If they failed, that was nothing more than experiencing Great Qin's purge and pursuit once more. In any case, the saints were already used to this. Very good. Qin Yu smiled. You have made a wise choice. My promise to you will surely be fulfilled in the future. As he spoke to hear, his thoughts stirred and his smile deepened. Qin Yu could feel the aura of Min Chongjing. In other words, he understood the price of drinking that cup of wine. After drinking it, he would be his. You three, the various countries of the desolate region, have joined forces to wage war against the barbarians. It is inconvenient for me to appear and interfere, so I need you to help the barbarians stabilize the war situation. The complexions of the three ancient remnant true empresses changed. Goliath Sovereign, it isn't that we don't want to, but that Qin Emperor has chased us for many years. Once his aura is exposed, he will surely descend. At that time, Qin Yu said, don't worry. Since I asked you to help, I will guarantee that Qin Emperor will not descend upon the wild battlefield. There was something he didn't say. Unless Qin Emperor wants to lose Xianyang. As the imperial capital of the Great Qin Empire, it was also the hub of the Great Qin Empire's destiny. It was the place where the power of incense flames gathered in the world. Once it was destroyed, there would be a tremendous backlash against Qin Emperor. With a single thought of the true Empress descending, as long as Qin Emperor dared to leave Xianyang, Qin Yu would arrive in the next moment. The female, true empress, sucked in a deep breath. She clenched her teeth and said, "Very well. This saint and the others will believe in your majesty. I hope that your majesty will not make us regret this." Qin Yu waved his hand. "You can start preparing now. Enter the territory of the barbarians as soon as possible. I will arrange everything ahead of time." "Yes." The fisherman suddenly said, "Goliath sovereign, this saint has another matter." Qin Yu said, "Speak." "Even if the saints join in, the barbarians will still be at an absolute disadvantage against the various countries. So, this saint suggests that your majesty subdue the monster race. They aren't like the ancient remnant bloodline that still maintains a massive population. If the monster race can help, the situation will be much better." Qin Yu said, "Continue." The fisherman took a deep breath. "There is a problem with Moon Fiend's condition." Qin Yu's eyes brightened. "Are you sure?" The fisherman nodded. "Before, during the war in the monster race's ancestral land, this saint sensed something. As for the specific reason, it involves my cultivation of the great Tao, so it is inconvenient for me to tell your majesty. But this saint can confirm that something has happened to Moon Fiend, and she is the greatest source of confidence for the monster race. If your majesty can grasp this point, perhaps you can persuade the monster race." "Good." Qin Yu smiled. "If this matter succeeds, I will remember your merit. The saints do not ask for any merit. We only hope that your majesty can win." The fisherman cupped his hands together and bowed. Shua, the three ancient remnant true sovereigns left. An unexpected harvest. There was a problem with Moon Fiend's body? The fisherman spoke with such certainty and solemnly told Qin Yu that this matter wasn't minor. In fact, it might even endanger Moon Fiend's life. Only like this could he shake the monster race's attitude. After all, the monster race was different from the ancient remnant bloodline. Although they were still living with their tails between their legs, their situation was much better. They weren't in a life or death situation. To have them follow Qin Yu and resist the great Qin Empire together would indeed be difficult. But now was different. Once Moon Fiend perished, it would be difficult for the monster race to maintain their current status. His thoughts raced, and a decisive look appeared in Qin Yu's eyes. He would make a trip to the monster race. No matter whether or not he succeeded, since there was a chance, he would try. Now he had to win over everything he could and increase his chances of victory. Taking a step forward, Qin Yu's thoughts moved. In the next moment, he appeared outside the monster race's ancestral land. In front of him, there was still endless fog. He stepped in, and the fog dissipated. He was soon discovered by the monster race. "It's Qin Yu, monarch. He actually dares to come to the monster race. Hurry and report this to Blue Divinity." With screams, the monster race began to rapidly draw back. After the Battle of Xianyang City, Qin Yu's fame had spread throughout the world. How could they dare to be insolent? Shua, the peerlessly beautiful Blue Divinity, appeared like a fairy that had descended from the heavens. She looked at Qin Yu and frowned. "Monarch, with your status, it is no longer suitable for you to enter my monster race's ancestral land. Please return." Qin Yu glanced at her. "Where is Moon Fiend?" Blue Divinity's frown deepened. "This has nothing to do with Monarch. Please leave." Qin Yu looked towards the depths of the monster race's ancestral land. From that direction, he could smell the faint scent of blood. "I can leave, but Moon Fiend will die." You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.